Chapter 4:14. Jingwan drank some hot tea with the two elders, ate some snacks, and chatted with them at the same time. It was very pleasant. Then, not long after, Li Hongyuan appeared. Jingwan was surprised. So fast. She thought that she would have to wait until she left the palace to see him. Li Hongyuan waved his hand, excusing Luo Daran and Luo Lao Furen from the ceremony. These two people were also not polite. Ceremony cannot be abolished? Obviously, they would not be so polite to the person who stole their granddaughter. Li Hongyuan sat next to Jingwan, directly took Jingwan's teacup and drank 2 mouthfuls before opening his mouth. Things fell apart. His expression and tone were very indifferent. To be unhappy with the person who raised him for so many years, even if his mood wasn't that bad, at least it shouldn't be as if nothing happened. The two elders of the Luo family looked at each other. So to say, the relationship between Jin Qinhuang and Su Guifei seemed to be more complicated than they expected. Moreover, it was obvious that Jin Qinhuang was in the lead. Not to mention how Su Guifei treated Jingwan. This point was very disgusting, but she was after all the person who raised him for more than 20 years. Their impression of her was still somewhat bad. He was able to operate such a large power under the eyes of so many people, yet he could make everyone think that he had no power or influence. He was so scheming, and his skills were as high as the sky, yet he was so heartless. If he wanted to do anything to Wan Wan would definitely be played by him until not even dregs were left. Well, they didn't care about how Li Hongyuan was with other people. It didn't matter if Su Guifei was killed by him, they were only worried about Jingwan. Li Hongyuan saw their expressions but didn't say anything. How he treated Jingwan, he didn't need to use his mouth to tell others. He would only use his actions. Sooner or later, he would let those who truly cared about Jingwan feel absolutely assured about him. Every time Jingwan was mentioned, they would say that she was blessed to have married a good husband. Of course, he wasn't deliberately doing this for others to see. After all, as time passed, outsiders would eventually find out, and it would be easy to guess what they would say. Jingwan's attention was on Li Hongyuan. "Can't you get someone to serve you a cup of tea? It only takes a moment." Li Hongyuan's gaze fell on her lips. "What hasn't this prince eaten before? Do you care about this?" Perhaps only the inexperienced young lady would not understand the deeper meaning of these words. It was fine if she messed around in private, but now, in front of the two elders, Jingwan's face immediately turned red. Not to mention now, even in her previous life, it would be quite shameful to say such things in front of the elders. Jingwan flew into a rage out of humiliation. Jingwan felt that it was shameful, but Li Hongyuan did not care. They were Wan Wan's closest people. He was close to Wan Wan. At most he would say a few words that seemed to be true and false, but he should still be happy in his heart. Therefore, there were some things that he did not have so many scruples about. Li Hongyuan was a person who did as he pleased, but in reality, when it came to Jingwan's matters, he actually cared quite a bit. Therefore, he cared about her as a person, therefore he cared about everything about her. Li Hongyuan and old Madame Luo looked at each other, both of them having a tacit understanding. Li Hongyuan chatted with the two elders of the Luo family for a while, waiting for Jingwan to voluntarily reveal her head. Because they were all considerate, Jingwan did not pretend to be an ostrich for long. They did not ask about the matter of Guifei Su, but Li Hongyuan took the initiative to bring it up. Not for anything else, but because they were wholeheartedly concerned about Jingwan, he reassured their hearts. Therefore, Li Hongyuan's treatment of Guifei Su was not heartless. There was a reason for it. There were only 4 of them present, and the servants had all retreated far away. With Li Hongyuan's keen senses, he was sure that there would not be a 5th person who heard it. Although it was not the first time that Jingwan heard Li Hongyuan talk about this matter, but hearing it again, she still felt distressed. At that time, he was only 10 years old. How could Guifei Su be so heartless? How could she do it? One could have feelings for a kitten or puppy, let alone a person. Moreover, it was a person who had put in a lot of effort and thought. When Jingwan faced Guifei Su, she actually wanted to shake her with all her might to clear her mind and ask her if she had the slightest hesitation when she took action. Although the two elders of the Luo family were more restrained, their expressions were also very ugly. In fact, this husband and wife were not people who cared about blind loyalty and filial piety. Therefore, they did not feel that Li Hongyuan's actions towards Gue Fei Su were wrong and should not be done. Thinking about it, if these two were the kind of people who would do whatever their parents say, whatever their parents do is right, and whatever their parents do cannot be disobeyed, not to mention that Li Hongyuan would not tell them anything, even Jingwan would not have a good relationship with them. After getting angry, Luo Peishan narrowed his eyes, revealing a bit of fierce danger. Gue Fei Su targeted Wan for no reason. Do you think this old man is a dead man? Therefore, Luo Peishan, this old fox, did not do anything that was not suitable for him to do. He was angry because of his granddaughter. What were you going to do about it? With Luo Peishan's smooth way of handling things and the help of Ruan Ruiz Hong, the Prime Minister of the Cabinet, no matter how much Li Hongming suffered, he could not find a reason to complain to Lu Qingdi. Some of Gue Fei Su's methods were too smooth and successful. When she targeted Jingwan, she did not think about whether it was appropriate. The biggest difference between Jingwan and Princess Lu was that Jingwan would not be controlled by Gue Fei Su and would not be bound by reputation. Princess Lu would swallow the insult, but Jingwan would never do that. Princess Lu had never resisted. Moreover, Gue Fei Su usually trained her daughter-in-law in private, so others naturally did not know about it. Therefore, when she occasionally said something meaningful, most people would not think too much about it. However, the two elders of the Luo family were not to be trifled with. They loved Jingwan very much. Jingwan was his sweetheart. It was not an exaggeration to say that he loved Jingwan very much. Therefore, if he bullied Jingwan, he expected to get along with her as he trained Princess Lu and even bring her a good reputation. He must be dreaming. Eunuch Mu made a slight noise beside him and then approached. Master, Gue Fei Su's people are here. Gue Fei Su seems to have called for an imperial doctor just now. Li Hongyuan lowered his head to drink tea. Eunuch Mu quietly retreated. Tonight, one by one, the imperial doctors were called. Originally, I thought that this year's birthday, the heavens would be beautiful. Unfortunately, people are not beautiful. This is probably more annoying than the heavens not being beautiful. Not long after, the person who came to see Li Hongyuan went upstairs. It was the same eunuch from before. On such a cold day, he was sweating all over. It could be seen how fast he had come. Greetings to Wang Ye. The greeting went down, but Jin Qin Wang did not call for him to rise. Instead, he waited for a word. Get lost. The eunuch trembled all over, but he did not dare to really get lost. If he did not pass on the message, then Wang Ye, Gue Fei Su, she. With a bang, a teacup bloomed on his forehead. Of course, his forehead also bloomed. Jin Qin Wang did not speak, but the living king of hell directly made his move. If he did not pass on the message, he might suffer when he went back. However, if he continued to speak, he might lose his life now. It was human instinct to choose the lesser of two evils. Therefore, the eunuch covered his forehead and quickly got lost. Jin Qin Wang was currently in a fit of anger. Wasn't it natural that he did not want to hear about Gue Fei Su? If he did not hear anything, he naturally did not need to see Gue Fei Su. Jingwan was quite calm. The two elders of the Luo family were still a little speechless. Therefore, this bad reputation was not without benefits. No one could be so reckless. Wang Ye, Gue Fei Su may not be pretending to be ill to force you to see her again. It is also possible that she is really ill. Is it really good not to go? Luo Daran said. So what? Li Hongyuan said as a matter of course. Your current reputation is only worthy of praise for being filial. Others did not dare to say this, but Jingwan was not polite at all. What does what other people think have to do with Ben Wang? As for Fu Huang, if Ben Wang told Fu Huang that Su She was worried that Ben Wang would threaten her son and secretly targeted Ben Wang, and even told him that Su She was hypocritical and raised Ben Wang only to fight for favor. On the surface, she was doing her best for Ben Wang, but inside, there was not a bit of sincerity. Ben Wang's temperament today is completely useless because of her. At that time, what would Su She's end be? Jing Wan and the two elders of the Luo family fell silent. Vicious. This move was truly too vicious. Li Hongyuan and Gue Fei Su had lived together in peace for more than 20 years. They were even very close to each other as mother and son. If he said this now, the credibility wouldn't be high. However, Li Hongyuan could completely smooth things over and say that he lost his mother when he was born. Although Gue Fei Su had ulterior motives, she at least treated him well on the surface. He was grateful to Gue Fei Su for raising him and had a strong affection for her. He didn't want to be estranged from her, so he exiled himself. After all, according to his own vague memories, he should have been quite good before the age of 10. He changed after his rebirth at the age of 10, and it was a subtle change. As he grew up year after year, he understood more and more. He also understood Gue Fei Su's character more and more. In that case, it was completely reasonable to say that it was all because of Gue Fei Su. The reason why they fell out now was mainly because Gue Fei Su was becoming more and more excessive. It was already unbearable. The first sign of this was when they returned from Jiangnan. Because Li Hongyuan's situation was special, Lu Chengdi didn't want him to be too capable and have thoughts that he shouldn't have. Therefore, when Li Hongyuan developed in the direction of a good-for-nothing trash, Lu Chengdi favored him more and more. However, the result of his self-exile and the result of someone else's deliberate actions were definitely two different concepts. If Lu Chengdi believed in Li Hongyuan's words, then for the sake of balance, even if Gue Fei Su wasn't immediately banished to the Cold Palace, she wouldn't be separated from her position. The Jade Essence Palace would also become a cold palace without a name. Therefore, it was actually very easy for Li Hongyuan to completely overthrow Gue Fei Su. He only needed to move his lips and put on an emotional show. Li Hongyuan hadn't made a move against her because he needed time to cultivate his power. Only when the Empress's faction and Gue Fei Su's faction were evenly matched could he be safer, more hidden, and more time. Now, it was about time. Gue Fei Su's value had reached its end. Moreover, she shouldn't have targeted Jing Wan. Therefore, Li Hongyuan naturally wouldn't feign civility with her. Although the four of them were isolated, how could such a big movement not attract the attention of others? However, this matter was related to the King of Hell. Even if they were curious, it was best not to get involved. Some things should be listened to if they could, but if they couldn't, then it was best to pretend that they didn't know anything. This was the best. Because the imperial physicians were all in the Sweet Dew Palace, Lu Chengdi was also there. On one hand, it was because of Qin Shufei. On the other hand, he wasn't in the mood to have fun with others. If he wasn't in the mood and it was cold, he naturally wouldn't come out. At this time, Gue Fei Su's people went to invite the imperial physicians, so Lu Chengdi had to be alerted. Therefore, the shadow in Lu Chengdi's heart was definitely not small. In the end, she was a woman that he had doted on for 20 to 30 years. It was impossible for Lu Chengdi to not ask. With this question, his head hurt even more. Although the person who was asked couldn't give a reason. After Old Sixth came back from Jiangnan, he had been unhappy with his mother. It seemed that they hadn't completely eased up. Now, it had escalated to another level. Therefore, if Li Hongyuan wanted to have a falling out with Gue Fei Su now, the foundation had already been set on fire. After all, Lu Chengdi himself thought so too. Call Old Sixth to the Sweet Dew Palace, Lu Chengdi thought for a moment, and bring his Wang Fei along. Since Lu Chengdi had asked someone to invite him, Li Hongyuan still had to give face. Moreover, he wanted his old man to see him being wronged, sad, and angry. It was acting, so naturally, he had to put on a full performance. Only then would it be perfect. Moreover, some of his goals had been completely achieved. There was no need to continue staying in the palace. Taking advantage of his bad mood to leave, his old man would most likely agree. Even if Jing Wan didn't feel cold, he would still feel distressed. Not long after they arrived, Lu Chengdi came out from the inner hall. When he saw Li Hongyuan's gloomy expression, he gave off an aura that said, "Don't get close to me." All right, before he even asked anything, Lu Chengdi's heart softened. He sat down and raised his hand to Jingwan, who was greeting him, to let her rise. What's going on now? What are you arguing with your mother? He didn't even mind that Li Hongyuan didn't greet him. Arguing? Li Hongyuan sneered. In father's eyes, am I a 3-year-old child? Alright. Then tell me, what's going on? He was already physically and mentally exhausted, but this matter kept coming one after another. If father wants to know, you should ask mother directly. Why ask me? I don't know. Li Hongyuan seemed to be poked at his reverse scale, and his face became colder and colder. Although Li Hongyuan didn't make Lu Chengdi angry and often talked back to him, Lu Chengdi had never seen Li Hongyuan like this. At that time, Li Hongyuan was mostly arrogant and insolent. But now, under the coldness, there was anger and grievance. Lu Chengdi really couldn't smash things and scold Li Hongyuan like he used to. He rubbed his temples. Alright, don't say it. I'll ask your mother later. No matter what your mother says or does, she still cares about you. Don't make too much of a fuss. Rest in Sweet Dew Palace for a while, and then go back home. Anyway, there's nothing for you to do in the palace. As for the matter of imperial concubine Su asking for an imperial physician, whether Li Hongyuan knew or not, he didn't mention it. With his son's current anger, even if he showed weakness and forced him to lower his head now, the backlash would probably be more serious. It was better to wait for his anger to subside. Therefore, Lu Chengdi didn't consider imperial concubine Su's feelings at all. He didn't care if she would feel better after seeing her son now. Obviously, between imperial concubine Su and Li Hongyuan, Lu Chengdi chose his son without hesitation. As a bystander, Jingwan emotionally wanted to clap her hands and praise Lu Chengdi for doing a good job. But rationally, she could only say that Lu Chengdi was too much of a scumbag tonight. He had already let down one person after another, and now he was rudely rubbing salt on people's wounds. And this wasn't the first time she saw Li Hongyuan's acting, but every time she saw it, she would gasp in amazement. Several people came in from outside the hall. Gong Jiu, Yu Zhongqing, and Li Suyen were among them. Greetings, Your Majesty. Rise. What's the result of the investigation? Lu Chengdi was still most concerned about imperial concubine Qin being poisoned. After all, this matter could also be related to his life. If he couldn't find out the truth, Lu Chengdi wouldn't have a moment of peace. Replying to Your Majesty, the source of the other half of the poison has been found. It came from a sachet used by imperial concubine Shu. What was slightly different from the previous prediction was that imperial concubine Shu didn't only come into contact with this sachet once. She had been wearing it since before the banquet. The source of the sachet has also been found. Imperial concubine Shu's things all came from the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Basically, she didn't let anyone buy it. The same goes for the sachet. According to the Ministry of Internal Affairs, a batch of sachets was sent to the harem yesterday. However, imperial concubine Shu wasn't the only one. All the concubines above the rank of concubine in the harem had a share. Moreover, the sachets only have different fabrics and embroidery patterns on the outside, but the fragrance inside is the same, Yu Zhongqing said. In this way, all the concubines above the rank of concubine had a share. Or rather, to confuse the public, they made such a scene to prevent the culprit from being found out quickly. However, if there was a problem with something from the Ministry of Internal Affairs, it was a very dangerous signal. After all, in the entire palace, too many things came from the Ministry of Internal Affairs. If there was a problem with one, there could be a second or third one. Therefore, Lu Chengdi's expression didn't improve at all. Your Majesty, there's no problem with the Ministry of Internal Affairs. This commoner has said before that the other half of the poison is different from the one fed to the chickens. The effect of the poison doesn't last long. Therefore, although many concubines in the harem have a sachet, imperial concubine Shu's sachet must have been tampered with before she used it. Hearing Gong Jiu's words, Lu Chengdi finally let out a sigh of relief. Is it easy to get this poison? It's difficult. When it's made into a finished medicine, it's too toxic to be carried. If you're careless, you'll hurt yourself easily. If you're not very proficient in it, you won't dare to touch it easily. As for separating, even if you only separate one medicine, there must be another medicine in the remaining part. As the saying goes, success depends on it, and failure depends on it. There are several medicines in this poison that are hard to get. Once they're processed, they'll lose their efficacy very quickly. Putting that special medicine can prolong the efficacy of these medicines, but it won't last long. At the same time, it's also the most important component of this poison. Because it's a special poison itself, it can make a weak person have a kind of final radiance of health. However, when the effect of the medicine is over, the person will be weaker than before. The effect will last for a long time. If it's serious, it may even shorten the person's life. When I was studying medicine with my teacher, I saw this medicine once. My teacher warned me that this medicine was harmful and not beneficial, so I shouldn't use it lightly. This medicine mostly grows in the southwest near southern Chi. More than 90% of it grows on cliffs and precipices. However, according to my teacher, some people who didn't know the truth named this medicine revival and planted it. Borrowing its special revival effect, it was once widely used by the locals. Later, when they learned of its harmful effects, it was gradually abandoned by the locals. However, I've heard of a few cases. There's no specific region, but it feels very much like it was caused by revival. From what you're saying, the medicine called revival should have been made in the palace before the banquet, just like the other medicines that lose their efficacy easily. Your Majesty, it must be so. The advantages and disadvantages of this poison are very obvious. If used properly, its power is limitless. However, if used improperly, all previous efforts will be wasted. Lu Chengdi was relieved. Is it necessary to go to such great lengths to feed poisonous chickens? Your Majesty, there's actually a possibility that you've misunderstood one thing. Making the medicine and putting it into the chicken feed is a process of preparing the chicken feed. The chickens that can be brought into the palace should be specially raised. The process of preparing chicken feed is not simple. Adding an extra step can't be considered a great deal of trouble. The ingredients themselves are easy to obtain. The problem with the poisonous chickens can't be found, and it's easy to enter deep into the palace. The other half of the poison can be used to take advantage of the fact that the medicine disperses quickly, and it's easy to destroy the corpse and erase all traces. For example, today, if no one noticed that the poisonous chickens were easy to rot, or if I didn't happen to know something, how could I have found the source of the poison? In other people's ears, Gong Jiu sounded like he was boasting. They had to admit that he was right. Some of the ingredients for this poison were difficult to obtain, but it didn't mean that they couldn't be obtained. Once obtained, the success rate was very high. Even if they didn't succeed, it was easy to get away with it. How did that poisonous chicken get here? Have you found out? Since it was extra, it couldn't have sneaked in from outside the palace. In the palace, every main hall, side hall, and even the back hall had a small kitchen. Some concubines could always find ways to get special things for themselves. Later, it became an unspoken rule. However, those things were strictly checked when they entered the palace. The concubines also knew that they shouldn't easily accept other people's things. Basically, they lived in peace. Therefore, the imperial kitchen was not the only place where there were chickens. Your Majesty, it's clear. It said that a little eunuch of the imperial kitchen brought it in from outside. According to the words of the other people in the imperial kitchen, the eunuch even shouted that the person in charge of the chickens was so careless that he ran out. Because they were all familiar with each other, no one thought much about it. When it was traced, the little eunuch had been killed, and the clues were cut off. We didn't dare to enter the harem without permission. Lu Chengdi sneered. The person behind the scenes is very cunning. He was one step ahead. Even if the poisonous chicken was the real harem, it must be gone by now. And this kind of thing, Lu Chengdi actually didn't want to talk about his wives. That would be very shameful, and it would be even more shameful if they couldn't find out. One of Lu Chengdi's eunuchs hurried in. Your Majesty, someone from the Kunyi Palace came. The Empress was forced to attend the banquet. She caught a cold and her condition worsened. Now she is in a coma. Lu Qingdi suddenly stood up. It wasn't that he cared about the Empress. It was just that he just knew that the Empress came back to life and this happened. Everyone looked at each other. Wasn't this too much of a coincidence? But thinking carefully, the Empress seemed to be in good spirits at the banquet. Then, was it her? https://www.bicon.com/11/11807/8288208. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. Registration is free. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicon.com. Bicon.com Mobile Edition. Chapter 4:15. Come, prepare a carriage for Kunyi Palace. All of you, follow me. Lu Qingdi stood up and strode out of the Sweet Dew Palace. He didn't look like he was going to visit the seriously ill Empress Su, but more like he was preparing to denounce her for causing a ruckus in Kunyi Palace. Jingwan turned to look at Li Hongyuan, asking with her eyes, "Should we go?" Li Hongyuan stood up slowly. Naturally, he had to go. This matter was still unclear. Li Hongyuan didn't allow this kind of thing to exist. According to Lu Qingdi, it didn't matter whether they went or not. There was still something to talk about. Li Hongyuan wanted to go, so Jingwan naturally followed. Although she had nothing to do, she didn't need to do anything. She only needed to be the perfect background or watch the show. Jingwan walked beside Li Hongyuan and followed behind Lu Qingdi. Behind them were Gong Jiu and the other two. Naturally, no one spoke along the way. When there was nothing to do, one's mind would either be empty or thinking about something. Jingwan's current situation was the latter. When Imperial concubine Qin was poisoned, Lu Qingdi accompanied her at all times. When the Empress fell ill, Lu Qingdi immediately went over. Only Imperial concubine Su, other than calling 2 Imperial physicians over, did not make a single splash. If noble consort Su knew about this situation, who knew how she would react? Among the 3 of them, she was the most favored one. Although Lu Qingdi had a reason for going to Kunyi Palace, noble consort Su didn't know it. Look at Li Hongyuan. He went to Kunyi Palace and didn't go to her. A fake illness became a real illness, and a minor illness became a serious illness. Lu Qingdi might have a reason, but Li Hongyuan didn't. At least, in everyone's eyes, he didn't. Putting herself in his shoes, both her husband and son were like this. If her tolerance was poor, it was possible that she would vomit blood and die from anger. Of course, noble consort Su's tolerance wouldn't be that bad. However, from some people's point of view, the more miserable she was, the better. When Emperor Lu Qingdi arrived, all the people in the Kunyi Palace, except for the Empress and those who did not dare to leave, welcomed him in fear and trepidation. Lu Qingdi ignored them and went straight to the inner hall. Other than Gong Jiu, everyone else stopped. It was not the first time that the servants in the inner hall had seen Gong Jiu, so they did not show any unusual expressions when they saw a non-imperial physician enter. Lu Qingdi sat on the side and motioned for Gong Jiu to come forward and treat the Empress. Gong Jiu naturally knew what to treat. Gong Jiu first checked the pulse, then used silver needles to insert a few needles into certain places of the Empress. Because they did not know medicine, the palace servants only thought that he was saving the Empress. Gong Jiu quickly came to a conclusion and nodded slightly to Lu Qingdi. Lu Qingdi was so angry that he knocked over the teacup that was just handed to him. The servant was frightened by Lu Qingdi's sudden movement. At the same time, he didn't know why, so he just knelt on the ground instinctively. "Your Majesty, please calm down," Gong Jiu said emotionlessly. Lu Qingdi calmed down. He also knew that even if the Empress took the medicine, she might not have had anything to do with this matter. Although he could kill, imprison, and demote most people in the world at will, there were still some people that he had to show evidence, even if it was just forged evidence, to convict them. He did not want to kill the Empress, so he would not forge evidence. However, he had to find out the ins and outs of the matter. What did Her Majesty eat today? Her Majesty's phoenix body originally needed to rest. Originally, she would have recovered in half a month at most. After a month, she would have recovered to 70 to 80%. Now, her body is rapidly weakening. According to this situation, it will most likely affect her lifespan. Gong Jiu said faintly as he gave the Empress acupuncture. When these servants heard this, they were so scared that their souls almost flew out of their bodies. What are you waiting for? Tell me now. If anything happens to the Empress, I will flog you all to death. Your Majesty, the Empress's food is very carefully. We dare not neglect it at all. The Empress really didn't eat anything special. There is no problem with the food. Then what about the medicine? Is there any change in the medicine the Empress takes? Gong Jiu continued to ask. Hearing this, several people's faces changed. Obviously, there was a problem. Tell me now. Lu Qingdi was furious. A group of blind bastards. Your Majesty, the Empress felt weak and didn't want to have any accident at the birthday banquet. So, she asked the Imperial Doctor to prescribe a dose of tiger and wolf medicine. The Imperial Doctor is the Empress's usual doctor. He said the medicine would make the Empress feel better, but there might be sequelae. The Empress's recovery time would probably be delayed. He didn't say it would shorten the Empress's lifespan. That bastard, how dare he, how dare he. The aunt who looked older was angry and angry. She cried and cursed. Gong Jiu asked them to bring the dregs of the medicine the Empress took. Lu Qingdi sent people out and asked Li Suyen to arrest the person. What a coincidence. The Imperial Doctor who was qualified to enter the palace was the one who prescribed the medicine to the Empress. He couldn't enter the palace because of a cold. The people of the blackguard acted quickly. There would be a result soon. After Gong Jiu temporarily stabilized the Empress's condition, he sorted out the dregs one by one. Among them, there was one that was quite obvious. This is the revival? Lu Qingdi asked in a deep voice. Yes, Your Majesty. As he spoke, he frowned. We've used too much. There are at least 5 plants of rejuvenation. Under normal circumstances, even if we have to take rejuvenation due to special circumstances, 3 plants is the maximum. The Empress's current situation is not optimistic. She might even... Hearing Gong Jiu's words, the people around the Empress almost collapsed. But in this way, the suspicion that the Empress was the mastermind behind the poisoning was reduced a lot. However, it couldn't be ruled out 100%. After all, the Empress might not know the true effect of the revival. So, the question is, was there a third party? It might not even be the Empress who poisoned the Empress, but a third party who killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Qin Shu Fei and the Empress were poisoned at the same time. Qin Shu Fei might die, and the Empress might use the revival too much and become weak, falling ill until the end of her life. According to this direction, the one who benefited the most was often the real culprit. Imperial concubine Su? But Imperial concubine Su wasn't a fool. When the Empress first fell ill, she was very nervous. Prince Kong acted with restraint. She also told her son not to act rashly, or at least not to rush to expand. During this time, the one who really jumped the most fiercely was the Gong Prince. So, it was more likely that there was a 4th person behind this, preparing to be the final fisherman? However, when everyone thought that it was impossible, it just happened to become possible. Was he trying to avoid responsibility? Therefore, Imperial concubine Su's suspicion couldn't be washed away. However, so far, everything was still in a fog, and the key thread hadn't been grasped yet. Lu Qingdi looked at the Empress on the bed in silence. Can the Empress' condition be cured? Replying to Your Majesty, no, it can only be alleviated. The amount of revival the Empress used was beyond our expectations. Now, we can only expel the remaining medicinal effects from her body, minimizing the greatest damage. After that, the Empress Phoenix body will need at least 3 months to recover. After that, she won't be as healthy as before, and will age easily. Winter is cold, summer is hot, and the slightest carelessness will cause her to fall ill. It will be more difficult for her to recover compared to ordinary people. Gong Jiu, in line with the ethics of a doctor, didn't add any details, and spoke frankly. Do your best. Lu Chengdi waved his hand. From these words, it could be heard that the Empress really didn't have much of the Emperor's heart. If he really cared, it wouldn't be about doing his best, it would be about curing her. Your Majesty, this commoner will first induce vomiting with the Empress, and then prepare the medicinal bath. It will still take some time. This commoner suggests that Your Majesty invite other imperial physicians to take the Empress' pulse. Lu Chengdi actually felt that it wasn't necessary, but he also knew Gong Jiu's concerns. After all, he was the physician of Jin Qin Wang Fu. If he was the only one handling the matter, someone might make an issue out of it, and Jin Qin Wang would inevitably be implicated. After all, Jin Qin Wang also had a reason to make a move on the Empress, although it might be a bit far-fetched to say it. Who let him be imperial concubine Su's adopted son, and even said that the recent slight discord between mother and son was an act. Therefore, Lu Chengdi nodded and let someone call over the imperial physicians of Sweet Dew Palace. Then, he sent someone to inform imperial concubine Su of this matter at a later time. Lu Chengdi was very clear that these women in his harem were very powerful. If he wanted to completely suppress them, he still needed some means from time to time. Although he didn't want to admit it, this was indeed one of the reasons why Lu Chengdi couldn't casually deal with them. Just think, if it was just a woman with average ability, he could just cripple her. Even if he wanted to build another balance, it was also an easy matter. After all, the majority of the women in the harem relied on his honor and favor. That's right, the majority. But these women were too powerful. If he dealt with them, Lu Chengdi was worried that it would leave behind hidden dangers. It was better to keep them and restrain each other. The other women in the harem would also have fewer opportunities to cause trouble. Regarding the situation in the inner hall, the people in the outer hall weren't very clear, but they could more or less guess. Li Suyen's ability to do things was also unquestionable, but it was still a step too late. That imperial physician died in his own study room. It looked like a suicide. When the blackguard came, the family found out about it. The imperial physician's residence was already in a mess. However, Li Suyen was unmoved. She ordered the small residence to be guarded. After that, she immediately went to the imperial physician's hospital to check the prescription for the Empress. In the end, there wasn't any. She also asked the imperial physician's hospital, but unexpectedly, there was no recovery of this medicine. When Li Suyen reported to Lu Chengdi, the other imperial physicians were also present. Their foreheads were all covered in cold sweat. After all, that was a colleague they met not long ago. Lu Chengdi's face was expressionless. Perhaps, after the little eunuch in the imperial kitchen was silenced, he already expected that there might be more deaths. However, since something happened outside the palace, it was the Supreme Court's responsibility. At the same time, imperial concubine Su, who received the news, was scared out of her wits. She couldn't care less about her anger. Her body, which was originally not very good, was much better after such a scare. She couldn't lie on the bed anymore and hurried to Yi Kuan Palace. After all, she was a concubine and didn't have so many scruples. She directly entered the inner hall. Seeing so many people, she paused and tidied up her appearance. This concubine greets the emperor. You're here. Lu Chengdi's voice was indifferent, as if he was very sure that she would come. Imperial concubine Su was frightened. She doubted whether she was right to rush over in the first place. Besides, could it be that the emperor really suspected that she did it? Your Majesty. Lu Chengdi glanced at her indifferently. Imperial concubine Su tactfully shut her mouth and didn't dare to say more. When the empress began to soak in the medicinal bath, Lu Chengdi took the irrelevant people to the outer hall. Before Lu Chengdi could say anything, Li Hongyuan stood up first. The palace is in a mess now. This son will leave first and return to the residence. His gaze didn't fall on Imperial concubine Su. Imperial concubine Su was in a hurry just now and didn't notice Li Hongyuan. In fact, Li Hongyuan deliberately shrank to a relatively dark place. Yuan Li Hongyuan glanced at her this time. Mother, have you finally discovered this son's existence? His face was a little gloomy. Yuan know that. This son will take his leave. He turned and left. Jingwan hurriedly squatted down and then chased after him. Imperial concubine Su's heart thumped. She knew that she was in trouble. She subconsciously turned to look at Lu Qingdi. Lu Qingdi stared at her with a gloomy face. Imperial concubine Su had seen his eyes like this before, but she wasn't the one who had to bear it. Now that she was baptized, she felt the terror of the emperor's prestige from the bottom of her heart. Imperial concubine Su was sick because of Yuan. Now that you heard that the empress's condition worsened, you immediately recovered. You were in such a hurry that you didn't even see your own son. Zhan is very gratified that you have such a deep sisterly relationship. She came and her son left. Lu Chengdi was certain of certain things. These words made Imperial concubine Su's scalp tingle and her heart tremble. However, she couldn't defend herself at all because these were the facts. Lu Qingdi's words simply confirmed that Imperial concubine Su was pretending to be sick. When it came to her own interests and safety, she recovered faster than anyone else and ran away faster than anyone else. The son that she cared so much about before was completely thrown aside at this moment. In addition, this was a typical example of selfishness. Who did Lu Qingdi care about the most now? His sixth son, Jin Qin Wang Li Hongyuan. Imperial concubine Su's unfailing favor for many years was Li Hongyuan. Thinking of the situation that she might face in the future, Imperial concubine Su could only suffer in silence. Jingwan and Li Hongyuan left Kuan-Yi Palace and really directly left the palace. After sitting in the carriage, Jingwan seriously looked at Li Hongyuan. That, when this man wanted to cheat people, it was really easy to do so anytime and anywhere. Jingwan leaned against Li Hongyuan's side. We can finally go home and rest well. Her body also softened. Li Hongyuan pulled her into his arms. We should have left the palace earlier. It doesn't matter. However, our Yuan, this time's matter. Jingwan stared at Li Hongyuan. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/8525600. HTML. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Biku Gur mobile reading website, bicken.com. Chapter 416. Li Hongyuan laughed in spite of himself. It wasn't me. Jingwan was very suspicious. With such a big lineup, how could several people fall down in one go? Well, the Gong Prince shouldn't be counted. After all, that was because he had a big mouth and asked for it. Apart from a certain person, who else could have such connections? Thinking about it, if it was a certain high-ranking concubine in the imperial harem, it was still possible. After all, the imperial harem was their territory. If it was Qin Shu Fei, she was the least suspicious. She had always been low-key. She couldn't think of a reason why she would put on such a show. She even almost threw herself into it. She couldn't have known that Jin Qin Wang Fu's doctor was so powerful. Jin Qin Wang's trust in her obviously couldn't be that high. The other two. Any fully prepared plan may have an accident. This accident may cause the plan to have a flaw, imperfection, or direct failure. It may also make the plan perfect, or even flawless. Li Hongyuan was still a bit unhappy about his wife's suspicion, but he didn't show it at this time. Ah Yuan's meaning is, tonight's matter was actually intentionally added? The possibility is very high. Li Hongyuan slightly narrowed his eyes, as if thinking of something, but these things have nothing to do with us. If you're tired, then rest. Jingwan leaned on Li Hongyuan's shoulder and rubbed against his neck. Tonight, it was really late. Because of the usual routine of work and rest, she was already a bit tired. Right now, the environment was quiet and warm, with all the familiar smells. Naturally she became more and more drowsy. She softly hummed. Because she was close, Li Hongyuan could hear it very clearly. Soon, her breathing became low and slow, the warm breath sprinkling on the skin of Li Hongyuan's neck. Li Hongyuan adjusted Jingwan's position, letting her sleep more comfortably. He fell into a short silence, then, how is it? Although Li Hongyuan didn't bring many people into the palace, it didn't mean that the people he left outside the palace were completely aware of the situation inside the palace. Don't forget, Yu Zhongqing was now working for him. Yu Zhongqing definitely had people who were loyal to him. The Imperial Guards were a very special existence in the Imperial Palace. Except for some of the main halls in the Imperial Palace, there was basically no place they couldn't set foot in. While they protected the safety of the Imperial Palace, they were actually a kind of hidden danger. This was because once they were controlled by someone, it was basically equivalent to controlling the lifeline of the entire Imperial Palace. Therefore, the position of the chief commander was very important. The choice had to be made carefully. It was also because of this that so many people wanted to rope in Yu Zhongqing. Not to mention other things, even if they didn't want to overthrow the emperor, it would be easier for them to obtain the situation in the Imperial Palace. Replying to Master, all aspects are watching. The things that should be investigated will be known by tomorrow morning at the latest. An Yi said in a low voice outside. If Jingwan was awake, she might only be able to hear the gist of it, but Li Hongyuan could hear it clearly. If it doesn't involve the Wang mansion and the Luo family, don't worry about it. If anyone dares to reach out their hands, don't be polite and chop them all. It wasn't that Li Hongyuan thought too much. It was purely to prepare for a rainy day. After all, the protective layer wrapped around him was not as reinforced as before. It was unknown if someone vaguely saw something. It could be a test, or it could be another mistake. He couldn't let it go. In short, it was always right to be cautious. Yes. Returning to the Wang mansion, Li Hongyuan carried Jingwan back to the heated room. It was warm and he didn't wake her up. He drew water, wiped his face, washed his hands, soaked his feet, and undid his hair. His movements were very light. When Jingwan showed signs of waking up, Li Hongyuan softly coaxed her twice in her ear. Like this, in the end, she was completely stuffed into the bed that had already been warmed up. Jingwan was at most in a half-awake, half-asleep state. Once she sank in, she naturally slept more soundly. When Li Hongyuan also got on the bed, she took the initiative to lean over. Jin Qinhuang's body was strong and his blood was vigorous. In the winter, he was definitely a top-notch human-shaped heater. It was just that this summer, perhaps he suffered a little. However, after a summer's baptism, Jingwan also knew that she shouldn't think that the heat could get rid of this man's clingy nature. The two of them were comfortable, but the majority of the people in the palace were absolutely uncomfortable, no matter what the reason was. Before Wei Xianfei, the three people with the highest positions in the inner palace had problems one after another. In addition to those who were worried about their own interests, there were also those who were worried about themselves. As for their maternal families, there were both. They all wanted to ask Lu Qingdi to let them go see the Jianyongyang. However, let alone getting permission, even the people who passed on the message refused. Even if they were stuffed with thick benefits, at this time, no one dared to accept. Lu Qingdi's mood was originally very bad. At this time, no matter what the reason was, in his view, it could be adding to the chaos. As a result, if they went forward, it was simply hitting the muzzle of a gun. The palace attendants were also not much. After receiving benefits, they also wanted to enjoy it. Imperial concubine Su's suffering was only more and more. Lu Qingdi had already noted it. If she could not ease the relationship with her adopted son for a long time, then the debt would continue to increase. However, her relationship with her adopted son was getting worse and worse. If she wanted to redeem it, the premise was that she could see him. Now the situation. Imperial concubine Su was very uncomfortable, but now she was forcing herself to hold on. If she really collapsed, it would only anger Lu Qingdi even more. It would confirm that she was indeed pretending. If she wanted to be well, she would be well, and if she wanted to be sick, she would be sick. At the most uncomfortable moment, even if the matter was not clear, Lu Chengdi could not continue to detain them. He could only let them go to their respective places. How to put it? Even those who had a good time outside heaved a sigh of relief. Whether these people could sleep or not was one thing. Tonight, the most tired person was definitely Gong Jiu. It was not easy to help the Empress disperse the remaining medicine and help Imperial concubine Qin make the antidote. These were not easy tasks. It was estimated that he would not be able to sleep for the whole night. However, as a secret guard, he just did not sleep for one night. It would not affect him much even if he did not sleep for 3 days. However, after all, his identity was no longer the same. He had to pretend that there was a problem even if there was no problem at all. Otherwise, it would be suspicious. After the Empress finished the medicinal bath, his face was obviously tired. It seemed that he had been forcing himself to hold on. With Gong Jiu's medical skills, it was simply too easy to make something very realistic on his body without leaving a trace. It was even impossible to find any abnormalities. Your Majesty, please allow me to rest for a while before making the antidote with Imperial concubine Qin. I'm not in a good state now. I'm worried that something will go wrong in the process of making the antidote. Lu Chengdi saw that his face was faintly pale. It was obvious that he was tired. It seemed that he had consumed a lot of energy. You've worked hard today. As long as you can ensure that Imperial concubine Qin is safe and sound, there's no harm in resting. When the Empress and Imperial concubine Qin are cured, Zhan will reward you heavily. Your Majesty is too serious. I'm just following orders. Moreover, treating and saving people is just the doctor's intention. When Lu Chengdi heard this, his heart cooled a little. He admitted that he already had the thought of snatching people from his son. Just think about it, with such a doctor whose medical skills surpassed all the Imperial doctors in the Imperial Hospital, his heart would definitely be more at ease. However, to snatch people from his son, it was still a little embarrassing. If it was another son. Alright, if it was another son, they would have already sent people to him to fulfill their filial piety. That evil creature. Lu Chengdi still felt depressed when he thought about it. However, if it was someone else who sent such a skilled doctor, he would suspect that his son was plotting something. No matter how good the doctor's medical skills were, he would not use him. Zhan has always been clear about rewards and punishments. You are a person of Jin Qin Wang Fu. What you deserve will not be less. Go rest. Many thanks to your Majesty. Gong Jiu prepared to leave, but his feet paused. Your Majesty's 10,000 gold body is related to the entire Qi Yuan. Your Majesty should take more care of yourself. Lu Chengdi also understood what he meant. How can I sleep? Your Majesty, why don't you let the Imperial doctors take your pulse and prescribe some medicine to calm the nerves? You are better. What Zhan wants them to do, you just have to take a look with Zhen. Gong Jiu frowned. Your Majesty, you can't say it like that. As the saying goes, every profession has its own specialization. The Imperial doctors have rich medical experience and are not comparable to this commoner. It's just that they are a little more steady in their actions. Don't make excuses for them. Zhan has not faced them for a day or two. How could Zhan not know their situation? The group of Imperial doctors couldn't help but be valiant again. Their role here was only to take the Empress' pulse. Before and after each medicinal bath, they couldn't relax. Other than that, they also studied Gong Jiu's prescription. Among them, there were some who knew about resurrection, but the name was not the same. They also knew a little about its effects, but they didn't know that after a certain amount, the consequences would be so serious. They wanted to know, and Gong Jiu was not stingy with his answers. In this way, in Lu Chengdi's heart, he established a strict and serious image. He was not taciturn in the field of pathology and pharmacology. He did not hide anything and was not arrogant. He adhered to the heart of a doctor. Compared to the group of people in the Imperial Hospital who had become sophisticated and slick, he was indeed much better. You also don't need to be long-winded. Lu Qingdi stretched out his wrist. Gong Jiu did not refuse again. Gong Jiu took a pulse and quickly wrote out a prescription. Before he left, his gaze fell on noble consort Su. Noble consort, your body is not feeling well. Take medicine when you need to, rest when you need to. You should also relax your mind. When noble consort Su heard this, her expression changed slightly. She glanced at Lu Qingdi imperceptibly. Zhen knows what to do about my body. Thank you for your concern. This commoner will take his leave. Gong Jiu did not say anything unnecessary and went straight to the side hall to rest. Since the Empress wanted the imperial doctors to take her pulse again, Lu Qingdi was no exception. The imperial doctors came forward one by one and looked at Gong Jiu's prescription. There is no better prescription than this. Rest assured, they let people get the medicine and boil it. Lu Qingdi tilted his head and looked at noble consort Su. Take the noble consort's pulse too. Gong Jiu's words at least proved that noble consort Su was not very well. Lu Qingdi's attitude towards her also eased a little. Noble consort Su's eyes were slightly red with tears. Thank you, Your Majesty. You've worked hard today. Go back and rest early. Don't tire yourself out and make the children worry. Therefore, she was not feeling well because she was tired, not because she was angry with her son. She was busy for the birthday, so no matter how tired she was, she still had to say that the Emperor's grace was vast and mighty. Noble consort Su's words were quite beautiful, and Lu Qingdi's heart was much smoother. Both of them took the medicine separately. Lu Qingdi soon felt sleepy, and the idea of snatching Gong Jiu became stronger in his heart. Lu Qingdi rested in the Kunyi Palace. On the birthday, it seemed to be no problem to rest anywhere. However, speaking of which, the newly conferred Consort Wei should have rested in Consort Wei Xian's Iha Palace to show his favor. Unfortunately, when Lu Qingdi fell asleep, noble consort Su destroyed the Jade Essence Palace. She was obviously very tired, but she couldn't sleep at this moment and fell into a long silence. After an hour, Gong Jiu got up and continued to work. Although the ingredients for the antidote were rare and expensive, there was never a lack of these in the imperial palace, so it didn't delay anything. This poison was overbearing, but the antidote worked quickly. After noble consort Su took the antidote, her condition improved visibly. The next morning, when she was having dinner with Li Hongyuan, someone from the imperial palace came in a hurry, saying that noble consort Shu had woken up and just wanted to see Jin Qin Wang and Jin Qin Wang Fei. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/8678790. HTML. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website. Bicken.com. Chapter 417. Not to mention the others, even Li Hongyuan had a trace of doubt in his eyes. After Imperial concubine Shu came back from the gates of hell, even if the first person she wanted to see was not Lu Qingdi, it should be her maiden family. Why would it be the two of them? Jingwan looked at Li Hongyuan and slightly raised her eyebrows. You're not going to explain? Li Hongyuan picked up a crystal bun and put it on Jingwan's plate. Eat up. After you're done, go to the palace to take a look. So there was no explanation? Jingwan understood. She continued to eat, and her speed increased a bit. Originally, she was almost done eating, so it didn't take much time. Because the people from the Sweet Dew Palace were still waiting, and they looked very anxious. Jingwan didn't dawdle and even urged Li Hongyuan to hurry up. No matter who it was, as long as Jingwan was a bit too concerned, Li Hongyuan would definitely be unhappy. The more Jingwan urged, the more he directly sat down and pulled Jingwan into his arms. His hands slightly exerted force and held her firmly. His meaning couldn't be more obvious. Jingwan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. All right. Let's take it slow. Otherwise, let's not go to the palace. Anyway, it's quite cold. It's more comfortable to stay at home. Jingwan simply smoothed his hair and gave him 2 kisses. Li Hongyuan looked at her coldly. Wan, do you think this husband is so easy to fool? Do you think I don't know what you mean? Jingwan wrapped her arms around his neck and leaned forward to rub against him, acting coquettishly. Well, some things are better known. Don't expose it. If it's exposed, it won't be fun anymore. Li Hongyuan was still smiling, but he was still a little cold. All right then. Today, your husband will have some fun with Wan. Jingwan hurriedly supported his shoulder. What kind of joke was this? If this went on, she really wouldn't be able to leave the house today. The insincere smoothing became extremely sincere. To put it bluntly, it was like ceding territory and paying compensation. She smoothed out a certain someone's hair. Jingwan was also depressed. It was not her problem to begin with. Why should she pay the price? Jingwan felt that this wouldn't do. After Qin Shufei recovered, she had to ask her for some benefits. When the person in the Sweet Dew Palace saw that Li Hongyuan and Jingwan had finally finished tidying up, he gently breathed a sigh of relief. Although it took a little longer, fortunately, this ancestor did not shirk his responsibilities. In the past, even if the emperor or the imperial consort summoned him, would he not go? If he really encountered such a situation, today was different from yesterday. His attire was not as solemn as before. He was still meticulous. Li Hongyuan, this person, although his reputation was terrible, his appearance had always been impeccable. Even in the Fu, other than when he was hanging out with Jingwan, he was always like this. Sometimes, Jingwan even had an illusion that this man was abstinent. Of course, an illusion was an illusion. This man did not have the slightest bit of abstinence. Lu Chengdi had some matters to attend to, so the husband and wife went directly to the Sweet Dew Palace. This was the first time that Jingwan and Li Hongyuan entered Qin Shufei's bedroom. Alright, in reality, Li Hongyuan had only been to the Sweet Dew Palace a few times, let alone Jingwan. Qin Shufei was not lying on the bed. Instead, she was leaning on the couch by the window. She had even woken up and carefully groomed herself. Being poisoned last night should have hurt her greatly. The person who was usually healthy and rosy was now pale. Facing the light outside the window, there was even a faint sense of transparency on her face. She looked fragile and fragile. Originally, compared to the Empress and Imperial Consort Su, Qin Shufei had never given birth to a child. Under the circumstances of being around the same age, her figure was the best. The 3 of them had their own characteristics and each had their own merits. However, the 3 of them did not have the characteristics of a sickly beauty. Qin Shufei was now putting on a show. There was only one person left to serve Qin Shufei. Her eyes were closed and she should have fallen asleep. However, her eyelids were trembling and her eyes seemed to be moving slightly. It was obvious that she was not sleeping well. Seeing Jingwan and the others enter, that palace maid hurriedly got up to greet them. After getting permission, she got up. Jingwan was still thinking about what to do now that Shufei Nyongyong was sleeping. That palace maid had already leaned close to Qin Shufei and softly said, "Nyongyong, Jin Qin Wang and Jin Qin Wang Fei have arrived." She was obviously worried that her voice would be too loud and startle Qin Shufei. Jingwan originally wanted to stop that palace maid. At this time, the patient was naturally more important. Unexpectedly, just as the palace maid's voice fell, Qin Shufei immediately opened her eyes. Her gaze fell on the 2 people. There was a kind of feeling that, in her eyes, they were the only existences in the world. Jingwan's heart was somewhat numb, to the extent that she did not dare to continue moving forward. Although Qin Shufei did not do anything, Jingwan felt that there was something abnormal about Qin Shufei. Moreover, no matter what, even though she was looking at the 2 of them, Jingwan felt that she was only looking at a certain person beside her. It was as if she had nothing to do with it. Jingwan wanted to turn her head and ask Li Hongyuan what was going on. However, being stared at by Qin Shufei like that, it did not seem too good to do so. As time passed, Qin Shufei's gaze became more and more strange. It was as if she was looking at her own child, incomparably kind. Jing Wan inexplicably thought back to before their marriage, or perhaps even before that, when Qin Shufei looked at her strangely. Although it was not too obvious, it was not always like this. There was a trace of inquiry in her gaze, but it was 100%. Qin Shufei treated Lu Chengdi's children about the same. It could be said that she truly treated them equally. Although she secretly stood on Li Hongyuan's side, she seemed to think highly of Li Hongyuan's ability. She did not consider herself as an elder, nor did she criticize Li Hongyuan's actions. Thus, Li Hongyuan actually felt Qin Shufei's gaze more than Jing Wan. Compared to Jing Wan, Li Hongyuan was indifferent. He continued to walk forward unhurriedly. Jing Wan followed closely by his side, half a step behind. The two stood at an appropriate position. "Greetings, Imperial Concubine Shu." Qin Shufei seemed to have been suddenly awakened. She revealed the same gentle smile as usual. However, compared to the distance between them previously, it was obvious that they were much closer now. "Quickly dispense with the formalities. Prepare a seat for Jin Qinwang and Jin Qinwang Fei." The palace maid quickly moved a chair over, served tea, and then retreated. Only the three of them were left. Li Hongyuan did not take a seat. Jing Wan also stood. Li Hongyuan looked straight at Qin Shufei. Speaking of which, she was a Shu Mu Fei. Li Hongyuan's actions were definitely rude. She had never seen him do such a thing before. "Wan, you go out first. I have a few words to say to Imperial Concubine Shu." Li Hongyuan suddenly turned his head to Jing Wan and said. Jing Wan was surprised. She raised her head to look at him. His face was expressionless, his eyes were deep. He hid all his emotions. Even the most powerful psychologist or expert on microexpressions would not be able to see any of his current thoughts. Li Hongyuan's situation was not common, but Jing Wan had seen it before. It was just that every time this happened, things might be slightly different. "All right." Jing Wan smiled lightly. She crouched down and retreated a few steps before turning to leave. Although she had retreated outside, she could still clearly see the situation inside. It was still the same principle. Avoiding suspicion was a must. Li Hongyuan's gaze landed on Qin Shufei's face. "Imperial Concubine Shu seems very nervous?" Qin Shufei admitted that she was indeed nervous when Li Hongyuan suddenly sent Jing Wan away. This was because she wasn't sure if Li Hongyuan had discovered something. She tried her best to hide it, but in the end, it did not escape his eyes. However, just based on this point, it was more comforting. She also relaxed a bit. "But I don't know what this consort has to be nervous about." Li Hongyuan finally sat down. "You'll have to ask Imperial Concubine Shu yourself. If you really want this prince to say it clearly, then just say it." "Who are you?" Qin Shufei only felt her heart beating wildly. Her blood flowed faster, causing a trace of color to appear on her face. Her hands unconsciously clenched into fists. Li Hongyuan looked at her without batting an eyelid. A look of, as expected, flashed across his eyes. In reality, he wasn't sure. It was more of a probing factor. "This consort doesn't understand what your highness is saying." Qin Shufei's voice trembled slightly. "You want to see this prince, but you can't bear to be straightforward. Then there's nothing more to say. This prince will take his leave." Li Hongyuan said and was about to get up. Qin Shufei couldn't take it anymore. She broke down in an instant. Tears rolled down her cheeks. The love and affection in her eyes could no longer be hidden. Li Hongyuan's expression was solemn. He frowned slightly. This situation was also unexpected. "Don't cry. You know best what your current situation is. I'm. The rest of her words were stuck in her throat. It seemed like she couldn't spit them out because she was afraid. "It's so obvious. What else do you not know?" After figuring out the cause of the matter, Li Hongyuan regained his tranquil composure. She knew that he didn't have any feelings for her. She was already mentally prepared, but when she really faced it, her heart still felt like it was being stabbed by a knife. Especially when she thought of the mother-son relationship between him and noble consort Sue, it was so painful that she almost suffocated. This was clearly her son. He was growing up in her womb. The first thing she felt was him stretching his arms and kicking in her womb. However, she wasn't able to see him being born, let alone participate in his growth. In reality, she had never complained. Even when she was abandoned by her family, she was only sad. She accepted a fate that she couldn't fight against because she believed that she would live her own life. That man, who was her husband, misunderstood her, hurt her, and even killed her. She didn't feel anything. Instead, it was a kind of relief. Anyway, there were no feelings. He didn't believe her, and she didn't want to explain too much. This man was stubborn. It was as if he had completely closed himself off. It was useless to say anything. Only this child, only him. However, it was gratifying that he didn't suspect her. He didn't think that she was a demon or a ghost, and he was afraid of her. You believe me, right? Noble consort Shu died last night. Did you take over her body? Li Hongyuan didn't answer the question. That's not the case. I've been in Sister Qin's body for many years. It's just that I was too weak and slept in her body most of the time. This accident, I temporarily took control of the body. Many years? How many years? https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/8699772. HTML. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken. Bicken. Mobile Edition. Chapter 4:18. When you were 10 years old. Because she had been in a deep sleep for a long time, she was still a little vague about the time. However, when she realized that she might be able to come into contact with her son, she was absolutely clear. 10 years old was indeed a rather delicate time frame. Then, where were you in the past 10 years? Inside a piece of jade. It's beige and has a very good texture. There are cracks like scattered blood-red lines inside. You might have seen it before. More than seen it before. Li Hongyuan took out the jade from the inside of his waist. Is this it? Yes, so Yuan has been carrying it. This discovery made the imperial noble consort very happy. You think too much. It was originally in my hands. When I was 7 years old, I moved out of the Jade Essence Palace and left it in the Jade Essence Palace. Not long ago, I accidentally found it. Looking at the jade pendant in his hand, Li Hongyuan's confusion was solved. He was 100% sure that in his previous life, his birth mother's soul was not in Qin Shu Fei's body. After all, Qin Shu Fei did not have any contact with him in his previous life. She might have been trapped in this jade pendant, although how this jade came into his hands at that time was still unknown. He felt that the blood-red lines in this jade were alive, probably not because of itself, but because his birth mother was in it. Now that she was not in it, it returned to normal. In this way, he did not need to care about this jade. It was just that he returned to 10 years old after his death, and she, who had always stayed in the jade in his previous life, left the jade pendant when he was reborn and lived in another person's body. He did not know whether it was because of this jade or her in the jade pendant. In this way, Li Hongyuan still put it away. You have been in this jade pendant for 10 years. You have no perception of the outside world? Hearing this, the imperial noble consort was a little disappointed, but she did not lose her composure. I didn't for a long time before, but I should have felt it for a while before I left. At that time, it was too quiet. I couldn't hear or feel anything, so I thought it was an illusion. Naturally, I didn't know how long I had been in there. Later, I inexplicably appeared in Sister Qin's body, so I figured out some things. Her Highness Shu Fei knows of your existence? She's being nice to me because of you? When I lived in Sister Qin's body, I could sense the outside world through Sister Qin when I was awake. More often than not, I could have brief contact with Sister Qin in her dreams for 2 or 3 days after she fell asleep at night. In the beginning, the time was relatively short. Later on, the time gradually grew longer and the frequency increased. There were 2 or 3 times when Sister Qin was awake during the day when she was awake and talked with her for a short period of time. This time, because of an accident, little Sister Qin was injured. When she woke up, I was in control of her body. I was also very surprised. This was also a disguised admission. If Qin Shufei did not know of her existence, then it would be the same as in her previous life. Li Hongyuan thought back to when he was reborn. Qin Shufei did not have any abnormalities, or rather, he did not feel anything at all. Of course, one reason was that Qin Shufei had always kept a low profile. Another reason was that Qin Shufei was not within Li Hongyuan's range of attention. However, it was obvious that if there was suddenly another person in one's body, one would definitely need time to get used to it. Furthermore, not everyone would be able to accept it like Qin Shufei. Towards this kind of ghost possession, especially for someone who had been dead for 10 years, most would only feel fear. Not to mention brazenly doing anything, it was more likely that they would think of ways to get themselves something that could ward off evil spirits or directly invite a senior monk. Thinking about it this way, Qin Shufei was really magnanimous to allow a ghost to live in her body for more than 10 years. After you lived in Her Highness Shu Fei's body, have you ever left to come to my side? Li Hongyuan's words did not seem to be any different from before, but the imperial Gue consort was keenly aware of his rejection. It even had a trace of negative emotions. This meant that if this matter was certain, he would be quite annoyed. This knowledge almost made the imperial Gue consort cry again. Even so, she still spoke the truth. There is once a year. The time is not long, at most 2 hours. It is just that I can't find you every time. Moreover, I should not be able to leave the palace. 2 years ago, I forcefully left and was not even by your side for a quarter of an hour before I lost consciousness. When I woke up again, it was already 3 months later. Little Sister Qin once thought that I had disappeared. Last year, I was unable to leave Little Sister Qin's body. Li Hongyuan picked up the teacup and took a sip. No matter what you see, please keep silent. If you can leave Her Highness Shu Fei's body, don't come to my side again. Being spied on in secret, no matter who it is detestable. Although her perception of the outside world was weak, she still knew her son's temperament and character through Little Sister Qin. To put it bluntly, he was a master who was completely out of control. However, she vaguely knew that he was secretly managing his power, and it seemed that he was not weaker than his brothers. If he could do this on his own, how outstanding would her son be if he had someone to help him? If someone had taught him well since he was young, how outstanding would her son be? However, that man allowed her son to be like this. The imperial Gue consort's smile was a little sad. I know. I won't do anything that you don't like, Yuan. She had never been jealous of anything, but at this moment, jealousy seemed to have corroded her heart. She was jealous of noble consort Su, the woman who had once held her arm and called her Big Sister, Big Sister. The imperial Gue consort actually knew that noble consort Su was not as she appeared to be. She even knew some of her methods, but she did not care, so she ignored it and pretended not to know. That woman was the driving force behind her death. Of course, noble consort Su was not the only driving force behind this. It was just that noble consort Su snatched her son away and used her son to consolidate her favor. She obtained the mother-son relationship that she could never hope for. This son was clearly hers. Her heart was crazy and dark, but she could not let her son see her ugliness. In the end, the imperial Gue consort was not noble consort Su. Although there were no feelings, there was no malice. Li Hongyuan naturally had no intention of provoking or hurting her, but it was impossible for him to say any words of comfort. In fact, Li Hongyuan had actually asked Master Liaochen about ghost souls. According to Master Liaochen, this kind of situation was 1 in a million. It always required a very, very special situation or something. Even if one could survive, it might not have a good ending. The probability of appearing in front of others was also 1 in a million. Therefore, Li Hongyuan himself was incomparably lucky to be able to restart everything, and this could not have happened for no reason. The Imperial Gue consort's soul could be preserved after her death undoubtedly had something to do with that piece of jade. Li Hongyuan took it out again. Where did this jade come from? The Imperial Gue consort slowly adjusted her position on the chaise lounge. She was not feeling well. Her body was damaged, and it was not hers. She was like a person who had been ill for a long, long time in bed. When she woke up, she would always feel stiff and uncontrollable. Coupled with the fact that her soul was not strong to begin with, she was only able to hold on to her current state by force. She shook her head. I don't know. For as long as I can remember, it has always been with me. The people around me don't know where it came from. When I was about 5, I met Master Liaochen. He said that it was originally something that belonged to me. I was born with it, and he said to take good care of it. Perhaps one day in the future, I could use it and my own life in exchange for another person's life. Master Liaochen was an eminent monk, but even he made mistakes. I've already died, so how could I use my own life to exchange for another's? If there is anyone in this world that I would be willing to exchange my life for, it would undoubtedly be you, Yuan. That was just a joke. You're fine now, so why would you need me? I can't do anything for you. The speaker did not mean it, but the listener did. Li Hongyuan subconsciously tightened his grip on the jade in his hand. A scene that he had no recollection of before suddenly appeared in his mind. In his previous life, when he was about to die, the piece of jade in his hand exploded, and a beautiful woman floated out of it. There were clearly many people around, but they seemed to not see her at all. She said, Yuan, Imperial Mother has wronged you. Imperial Mother is incompetent. I couldn't even hold on for one more breath to wait for you to be born. Otherwise, why would you have suffered so much in your life? Imperial Mother has a remnant soul left, trapped in the jade, but I can only vaguely watch you suffer. Imperial Mother brought you to this world, but didn't give birth to you, and didn't raise you. I really owe you too much. Imperial Mother has long wished to exchange my life for yours, but I didn't know how to do it. Now I don't know if it's too late. If you can survive, I hope you can be healthy, I hope you can. At that time, Li Hongyuan was neither sad nor happy. Even though his body was in extreme pain, when he saw the Imperial Gue consort appear, he did not move at all. Do you think there is any meaning in me continuing to live? Why don't I start over, let me change history, and get back my true love? When he said this, he did not mean it. He knew it was impossible. Imperial Mother doesn't know. I really don't know. If possible, Imperial Mother wishes you to get what you want. After saying this, her body turned into thousands of light spots and completely dissipated. Then, the piece of jade also had the same fate. Li Hongyuan fiercely closed his eyes. After a moment, he opened them again. When he looked at the Imperial Gue consort again, there was an indescribable complexity in his eyes. He had no feelings for this woman, but now he suddenly knew that it was all because of her that he could start over and get what he wanted. She had used her own complete disappearance to exchange for this. According to Master Liaochen, there was a special kind of person among the millions. They were blessed by the heavens. Li Hongyuan was not truly cold-blooded and heartless. Therefore, he could no longer remain indifferent to this woman. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/8699773. HTML. Please click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken. Bicken. Com Mobile Edition. Chapter 419. Li Hongyuan was naturally familiar with Qin Shufei's appearance. However, at this moment, she looked like a completely different person. Come to think of it, he had only seen her in person in his previous life when he was on his deathbed. He recalled that she had never raised him up, as if she had not fulfilled her responsibilities as a mother. However, in his previous life, she had accompanied him in a special way for many years without his knowledge. In the end, she had paid the price of her own dissipation to fulfill his wish. What he had changed was not only his own fate, but also the fate of many others. People who were supposed to die were not dead now. If all of this had to be exchanged, who should it belong to? If she was really a person who was blessed by the heavens, she should have been reincarnated to experience her next perfect life. Yes, since she was a person who was blessed by the heavens, there was no reason for her to suffer the tribulations of life. In this life, she had married that man, Lu Chengdi, and caused her to have an unfortunate life. Something must have gone wrong. If it had been in his previous life, if someone had told Li Hongyuan about karma and reincarnation, he would not have believed it at all. However, with that kind of experience, it was hard not to believe it. Although he was still unscrupulous in his actions and did not hesitate to do what he had to do, he did not hesitate to kill some people. However, now, even if he knew the reason why he had to restart his life, even if there was someone who could set everything back on track, he would not be willing. No one knew better than him what Li Hongyuan's obsession was. If he had known from the beginning that his birth mother was special, he would have used all means to achieve his goal. No matter how many people he would lose, he would not hesitate. What the imperial noble consort did was to make him unable to ignore her existence when he originally felt nothing. Perhaps he wanted to protect her, or at least send her back into the cycle of reincarnation. He knew that the possibility of this was not high, but he believed that everything depended on people. If someone had to be exchanged for her, he didn't mind at all except for those who couldn't be touched. It wasn't that he cared much about his birth mother, but compared to those who were unimportant, he naturally didn't care about it. The imperial noble consort did not know why her son suddenly fell silent. She kept feeling that she was getting weaker and weaker, as if her soul had been greatly consumed to control this body. However, in order to see her son and even have a good talk with him, the imperial noble consort was willing to die immediately. In this way, it was best to rest. However, she still wanted to see her Yuan more. Because she was not sure if there would be a next time, she forced herself to stay as quiet as possible without moving. She felt as if there were insects crawling in her throat. It was definitely a very difficult thing to endure coughing. However, how could this be hidden from Li Hongyuan's eyes? Just think about it. According to the actual time she had experienced, Imperial Noble Consort Su had only been in Qin Shufei's body for about 30 years. Moreover, the things she had experienced were not much. Moreover, a person's experience was not measured by time. Therefore, at this moment, the Imperial Noble Consort was probably not comparable to Jingwan in many aspects. It was purely a fantasy to try to hide her little tricks from Li Hongyuan. Li Hongyuan got up and poured a glass of water for her. He put it on the small table beside her and retreated. The Imperial Noble Consort was stunned. Although her son's expression did not change, his attitude had inexplicably softened. Although she did not understand, she was extremely happy. Her hands trembled as she picked up the glass. It was clearly just a glass of water, but she felt that it was exceptionally sweet. There was nothing sweeter than this. Because she drank it sip by sip, she especially cherished it. Seeing her like this, Li Hongyuan frowned slightly. He really did not understand. It was just a glass of water. Was there a need to be like this? Therefore, people like Li Hongyuan would probably never be able to understand the feelings of a real mother. They would really give everything to their children without any complaints or regrets. As for their children, even if it was just a little thing, they would be exceptionally happy and satisfied. Especially in the current situation between the mother and son. After the Imperial Noble Consort finished drinking the water, Li Hongyuan spoke again. Don't be so stupid when it comes to things like possession. You should know the consequences if people find out about this. Although Li Hongyuan's words were very unpleasant, the imperial noble consort's heart was particularly pleased. Her son was showing concern for her. Yuan, don't worry. Mother. Imperial noble consort only revealed her traces when she saw you. Others would definitely not. After all, I have been with Sister Qin for more than 10 years. No one knows her words and actions better than Imperial noble consort. In the beginning, when the Imperial noble consort referred to herself as Imperial noble consort, she was still a little hesitant. However, seeing that Li Hongyuan did not have any reaction, she became smoother. Speaking of which, it's also because my son is sharp and intelligent. If it was someone else, how could they have such suspicions because of such a little abnormality? Li Hongyuan did not speak. If it was not a special experience, he naturally would not think of this point easily. It had nothing to do with sharp and intelligent. Take care of yourself. This son will take his leave first. Other than Imperial noble consort Su, he did not have any connections with the rest of the people in the harem. It was definitely not good to stay in the Sweet Dew Palace for too long. Originally, after Imperial noble consort Qin woke up, she did not want to see anyone else but wanted to see the couple. This was already puzzling. Although he did not call her Imperial noble consort, he claimed to have changed. The Imperial noble consort was also happy. Although she was reluctant to part at this time, she also knew how powerful it was. Otherwise, Imperial noble consort Qin would not only help out when needed but could not do anything at other times. Her son was special. Only by being isolated far away could he live better. Thinking of this, her heart was once again in extreme pain. It was all right. Yuan, wait a moment. Imperial noble consort still has a few words. The Imperial noble consort was a little hesitant. However, she was worried that her son would suffer without knowing it. Regarding Imperial noble consort Su She, Imperial noble consort is not trying to sow discord between you two. It's just that Su She is a person. Imperial noble consort. Li Hongyuan calmly interrupted her. To be honest, it was just a form of address. He really did not care much about it. If it could make this woman happier, it did not matter. Not for anything else, but for Wan, he did not mind doing something. This son has a sense of propriety regarding the matter of the Jade Essence Palace. This son knows better than you what kind of person Su She is. You do not need to worry about the things this son has done. There is also no need to ask Imperial noble consort Shu to do anything. You just need to take care of yourselves. How could the Imperial noble consort not understand the meaning of Li Hongyuan's words? No matter what kind of thoughts Su She had, her son knew. Then, there was really nothing to worry about. Good. Knowing that you are fine, Yuan. Knowing that you are more appropriate than expected, Imperial noble consort has nothing to worry about. Even if I die now, look at how happy Imperial noble consort has become. Originally, Imperial noble consort has already died. Now, Imperial noble consort has no regrets. After the Imperial noble consort finished speaking, Li Hongyuan clearly felt that she had become weaker. He unconsciously clenched his fists and his heart tightened slightly. This person, when faced with a desperate situation or death, if they had a strong obsession, they would be able to obtain more. This soul would be the same. No regrets? Imperial noble consort does not want to see your grandson? Even if you can't personally hug him, what about taking a look? You don't even know about this son's birth. You did not personally see this son grow up. Don't you want to make up for it with your grandson? Hearing this, the Imperial noble consort's eyes became more spirited. Before you two got married, younger sister Qin actually sent people to inquire about it in private. Your wife is a good person. You have to treat her well. As for other women... The Imperial noble consort paused. In short, don't let her down. In fact, she wanted to say that it didn't matter if other women were necessary. She was the victim. Moreover, she had once received the promise of only one person for a lifetime. As a woman, She was not the kind of person who wanted others to be bad if she was not good. That way, she would be able to obtain psychological balance. If possible, she actually hoped that every woman in the world could be treated well. However, her son was a prince after all. The education he received was different from the beginning. The mother and son did not have a foundation of feelings before. The imperial noble consort would not think that she had the right to order her son around just because he accepted her well and had a soft temperament. Moreover, her son was someone who might ascend the throne. The harem was not that simple. More importantly, her son was already over 20 years old. He had his own thoughts and should be responsible for his own matters. In her opinion, even if she was a parent, it was best to guide them from the side and not make all the decisions for them. She is still young now. Her bones have not fully grown yet. There is no rush to have a child. Moreover, with the current situation, it is not suitable for you two to have a child. Imperial noble consort does not mind waiting for a few more years. Her son was now over 20 years old. She was also quite anxious about her grandson. However, some things could not be rushed. Li Hongyuan quietly looked at the imperial noble consort. He was actually a little surprised by his birth mother's words. How could his blood-related maternal grandfather, in a family like the Pei family, raise a daughter who was completely different from them and did not fit in? However, compared to Madame Su, Wan should be able to get along well with her real mother-in-law. Perhaps after a little more time, her mother-in-law would stand on her daughter-in-law's side. Wan will like you very much. Really? Then it's really a pity that I can't talk to her. However, the imperial noble consort was even happier that her son seemed to really like his wife. When he talked about her, he would unconsciously become gentle. She has spoken up for you more than once. You should have had a happy life. What a silly child. How can life be perfect? However, if you can obtain it, you should cherish it. The next time she says something like this, you can tell her that imperial noble consort has you as her son. Everything else is actually nothing. Li Hongyuan lowered his eyebrows and restrained all his emotions. If there is a chance, you can tell her yourself. In addition, I promised her that I will not have a second woman in this life. The imperial noble consort's heart trembled. Okay. As she spoke, she inexplicably shed tears. https://www.bicon.com/11/11807/8728135. HTML. Please click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicon.com. Bicon.com mobile version reading website. Bicon.com. Chapter 420. Seeing her son leave, the imperial noble consort wanted to stop him, but in the end, she just watched quietly. What was the saying again? Sure enough, the more one got, the greedier one became. She was no exception. Before meeting her son, she just wanted to see him and talk to him. She didn't expect her son to know her identity and not be afraid of her, but to acknowledge her. It was like a dream, but it really happened. Hearing his words, she really wanted to live for a long time. The children she had seen were all from other families. Even when she was still in the Pei family, she would at most tease the children in the family. She didn't think that there was anything special about them. But what if that child was her grandson or granddaughter? She didn't have the fortune to see her son's cute little hands and feet, but her grandchild. Just thinking about that soft little body, fair and plump, growing up little by little and revealing an incomparably pure smile, just this alone made her heart melt into a mess. In fact, the imperial noble consort also wanted to ask her son if he knew that he was the son of a ghost. Although she didn't know about her son's birth, it was enough to show that her son was indeed born after her death. That man's attitude towards him was enough to prove this point. Thinking about it, other than herself, only that man and Su She knew about this matter. Therefore, it didn't seem strange that Su She would raise Yuan her. These two people probably wouldn't tell him about it. It was hard to say if there were other people who knew about it. As long as they showed signs, her son might know. She didn't care about the matter of being the son of a ghost, but it wasn't a good thing, so she could only suppress it and not mention it. Compared to the joy of the imperial noble consort being acknowledged by her son and her longing for the future, she was in a good mood even though she was weak. Li Hongyuan, who knew more, obviously felt a little heavy in his heart. However, after seeing Jingwan's concerned eyes, the heaviness dissipated a lot. Things like changing one's fate would happen again. Although it couldn't be compared to Wan's death date, it couldn't be considered a complete change of fate. When the time came, if God really wanted to stop him, so what if hundreds of thousands of people were buried with him? When it came to his biological mother, he admitted that it was impossible for him to do this, but he would do his best. Jingwan saw that Li Hongyuan's face had eased, and she was relieved. It seemed that it wasn't too difficult. Well, if Jingwan knew what her husband wanted to do, she probably wouldn't be so relaxed. At this moment, she didn't ask much. If he could let her know, he probably wouldn't have let her leave just now. And what he hid, it wasn't that he didn't want to tell her. More often than not, she believed that it was for her own good. How could Jingwan ignore his good intentions? When he left, Li Hongyuan turned back to take a look. Separated by a veil, imperial concubine Shu seemed to be unable to hold on and had fallen asleep. When she woke up again, there was an 80 to 90% chance that it would really be imperial concubine Shu. There were two different souls in the same body. In the absence of external forces, it was naturally difficult to snatch the body from the original owner. Looking at his biological mother, she wouldn't do such a thing. However, Li Hongyuan slightly narrowed his eyes. Later, Li Hongyuan asked someone to send a message to Gong Jiu in the Kunyi Palace. As for the Empress, it was almost done. He could leave it to the imperial doctors and ask them to focus on the Sweet Dew Palace. Gong Jiu knew that imperial concubine Qin was one of the people on his master's side. The so-called closeness was reflected in this, not to mention that Empress Sun was an enemy. Therefore, even without Li Hongyuan's order, he was biased towards the Sweet Dew Palace from the beginning. It was easy to find the reason, and others couldn't easily find the flaw. Lu Chengdi still had things to do. Li Hongyuan was too lazy to wait for him and directly left the palace. After hearing this, imperial concubine Su, who was waiting for him in the Jade Essence Palace, fiercely lost her temper. For her, this was really unusual. However, after losing her temper, imperial concubine Su could only be sad and full of grievances. Unfortunately, there were some things that she couldn't tell anyone, especially when the emperor had opinions about her. However, the days when imperial concubine Su couldn't even swallow rice were still to come. After leaving the palace, let Min Xiang know about Min Xiang's mistress having an illegitimate son. In addition, Third Imperial Brother's backyard has been quiet for a long time. It should attract imperial concubine Su's attention. Looking at the meaning of his birth mother, he was afraid that imperial concubine Su and imperial concubine Su were not as good as imperial concubine Su said. Moreover, he originally wanted to find something for imperial concubine Su to do. Now, the timing was just right. It would also save imperial concubine Su from spending all her energy on him. Moreover, if she couldn't do anything about him, she might turn to Wan. Moreover, he didn't think that imperial concubine Su would change her attitude towards Wan because of his words. She might become more serious, but it might be more subtle. After all, once some women got into a dead end, especially someone like imperial concubine Su who wanted to hide her control, it was even more difficult to turn back easily. Jingwan opened her mouth slightly and then kept silent. Imperial concubine Su, you're on your own now. On the surface, Min Xiang and her son-in-law were not bad, but in private, they were not good. Originally, Jingwan thought that it was fine for such a good-for-nothing man like 5th Imperial concubine Su to let Princess Min Xiang bully him. He could also tolerate Min Xiang aborting the child without permission because she didn't want to have children. Under the background of valuing children, it was reasonable for him to report this matter to Lu Qingdi. It was enough that he could act as if nothing had happened. However, she didn't expect that before Min Xiang married him, he already had 2 children. Under such circumstances, he still dared to marry Princess Min Xiang. Therefore, when this honest man became bold, he could really pierce through the sky. However, it was probably because he had a successor that he endured the matter of Princess Min Xiang aborting the child. After all, while he suffered a loss, his family benefited greatly. However, the 5th prince consort had an extramarital affair before he got married and had a child. This was probably the most outrageous thing he had done. With his soft personality, he was really careful and cautious. Therefore, if it wasn't for the irreconcilable conflict between him and Min Xiang, his parents wouldn't have known that he actually had a child. Thus, it could be imagined that Imperial Consort Su had only sent people to investigate casually. The people who investigated were actually quite perfunctory. After all, in their opinion, no one had the guts to fool them. Unexpectedly, they didn't find out anything about this matter. As for 5th Imperial Concubine Su, when he found out that he was the candidate for the position of Imperial Concubine Su's son-in-law, he covered up this matter even more tightly. It wasn't that he was bold. On the contrary, it was because he was too timid. He was afraid of the consequences of angering Imperial Concubine Su and Prince Rue. He also knew that if he revealed the matter of the child after marriage, the matter would only become more serious. Therefore, he was even more careful. With Princess Min Xiang's personality, and 5th Imperial Concubine Su's parents didn't want their son to have no successor. After finding out about this matter, they naturally helped to cover it up. If Princess Min Xiang found out about this matter, she would definitely turn the sky upside down. After all, in her opinion, the person who was definitely in the palm of her hand actually did such a thing. One could imagine how angry she would be. Without Imperial Concubine Su by his side, he would definitely lose his rationality and do something irreversible. By the time Imperial Concubine Su found out, it would probably be too late. Moreover, Li Hongming was the person that Imperial Concubine Su truly cared about the most. Imperial Concubine Su's lack of a grandson had always been a thorn in her heart. Now that she found out that she might not be able to have a son anymore, she would definitely be half dead. A person who couldn't have a son wanted to be the emperor. No matter how much the emperor favored the emperor, it was impossible for him to do such a thing. If they wanted to continue fighting for the emperor's throne, they would definitely have to hide it. If they were forced into a corner, they might even have a bastard child to make up the numbers. When the time came, they would reveal it. That scene was too beautiful. Jing Wan expressed that she didn't dare to think about it. Moreover, Li Hongming was a man who couldn't have children. In the current situation, he was probably only a little better than a eunuch. In Jing Wan's opinion, that person's heart wasn't very open and bright. In the future, he would probably become even more gloomy and dark. That kind of recognition was actually very scary. Anyway, he didn't have to worry about the future. He would dare to do anything and be able to do anything. However, Jing Wan looked at the man beside her and wasn't too worried. If it's not enough, then reveal Su Mingzhong's matter as well. Li Hongyuan continued. That was why there was no most ruthless, only more ruthless. Jing Wan looked at the sky. Although she only saw the top of the carriage, the result was the same. She felt that she could rest easy. Something happened to her daughter. Her son was in despair. The most capable person in her maternal family fell. It was equivalent to losing the Su family's pillar. Who knew how many people in the Su family would follow the collapse? With all these, if noble consort Su still came to find trouble with her, then noble consort Su wasn't human. And the others' movements were naturally abnormally nimble. However, the next day, the matter had completely reached Princess Min Xiang's ears. Princess Min Xiang's actions were even more nimble than Jingwan's. She immediately brought people and killed her way to the place where the 5th prince consort was keeping a mistress. Coincidentally, the 5th prince consort was also caught on the spot. Jingwan felt that it was quite boring. Naturally, She would let her subordinates keep an eye on such gossip and report it to her. Jingwan prepared to go to the post house to find the female envoy from Jin Song. After receiving the news, it was best for her to slow down. In any case, the envoys from various countries wouldn't leave so quickly. Digression. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/8752621. HTML chapter error. Click here to report, no registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com Mobile Edition Reading Website. Bicken.com. Chapter 421. Before Princess Min Xiang got married, she pretended to be innocent and cute in front of Lu Chengdi, acting spoiled and silly. As for noble consort Su, as the most favored person in the harem, even if noble consort Su restrained her a little, with her status, noble consort Su would never teach her daughter to be kind to others. Princess Min Xiang was also very clear that with so many siblings, there were only a few who could make her restrain herself. Among the princesses, she was the eldest princess. Even if she was not that unruly, she was definitely willful and not someone who would easily be taken advantage of. After breaking away from noble consort Su's discipline, such a husband encouraged her to be even more arrogant. When she flipped out, her fighting strength was definitely strong. The fifth prince consort hugged his beautiful wife, the two children wrapped around his knees. He was a completely different person compared to when he was in front of Princess Min Xiang. He was not like how he was in the eyes of outsiders. He looked somewhat elegant, not outstanding, but not very mediocre either. He had a certain amount of popularity. However, in this place, he was a real man. His beautiful wife always looked at him with reverence. Even if he threw a tantrum because of what happened outside, she was still gentle, considerate, understanding, and obedient. His two sons were also smart and obedient and always looked at him with admiration. No matter what he said, they would be extremely supportive, thinking that he was the most powerful person in the world. A man's vanity and pride were greatly satisfied. When Princess Min Xiang broke through the door with her people, the fifth prince consort's originally complacent face turned into extreme terror after a moment of astonishment. He did not care about the woman beside him and subconsciously shielded the two children behind him. Princess Min Xiang sneered, "You are quite manly now, but it is a pity that this is all we can do. Tie them up and take them away." No one knew Princess Min Xiang's true nature better than this prince consort. Because of this, even though the winter was cold enough, he felt as though he had fallen into an ice cave. His entire body was stiff, as though even his blood had frozen. However, before he could react, all four of them, including him, were tied up. Just as the fifth prince consort was about to speak, he was ruthlessly slapped a few times. His mouth was full of blood, his teeth were loose, and his face quickly swelled up. One had to know that even if the princess did not have much status to a certain extent, she was still the emperor's daughter. The princess residence was well equipped. The quality and quantity of guards could not compare to a prince. However, that was still proper. Normal large residences would not have such guards. These people were at most guards of the residence. However, like master, like servant. Used to Princess Min Xiang's attitude towards fifth prince consort, these people naturally followed suit and would not be lenient. If the fifth prince consort was like this, how could he expect the woman and the two children to be treated well? After the fifth prince consort was thoroughly humiliated in front of Princess Min Xiang, he would come here to find his dignity. The more cowardly a man was, the more extreme his methods would be in a place where he could find his dignity. The woman he was raising was 100% loyal and obedient to him. Naturally, there was no need to beat around the bush. He only needed to vent his anger in the most direct way. There was no woman who would not be afraid of such things. This canary-like woman was no exception. As for the culprit who caused all this, she was naturally extremely terrified. Although the fifth prince consort did not say anything in detail, she could more or less guess some things from his words and actions. She had once fantasized about waiting for this man to get married and bring the three of them back. Even though she was pregnant with a princess, she still harbored a little bit of hope. However, she had been receiving punches and kicks from this man time and time again. After finding out the reason, that little bit of hope disappeared without a trace. The rest of her days were spent in fear. She was very clear that once her existence was discovered by Princess Min Xiang, she would die very miserably. She would not have the slightest ability to resist. After all, she was a member of the royal family. If she wanted to kill her, it would be as easy as killing an ant. It was not that she did not want to leave, but where could she go? She was an orphan with no power or influence. If it was not for this man, she did not know what kind of state she would have fallen to. Moreover, she could not let go of the two children. She had always been scared witless and hoped that she would not be discovered. However, she also knew that paper could not wrap fire. One day, therefore, when Princess Min Xiang barged in with people, other than trembling in fear, she also felt a bit of relief. It was extremely contradictory, but it really existed. The most pitiful and innocent were the two children. They did not know anything. They did not even know what kind of existence their mother and themselves were. They were so scared that they cried loudly and subconsciously asked their parents for help. However, it was completely useless. Even for these two innocent children, they were not treated gently at all. Even if they were carried away by a guard, in fact, they were not. They were violently pushed and pulled up when they fell. If they did not stand firm in time, they would be dragged away. When their children were treated like this, as parents, they would definitely feel pain and hatred. The fifth prince consort's face was filled with unprecedented malevolence and hatred. However, Princess Min Xiang only looked at him with a cold smile. She clearly told him that his life and death, everything about him, was in her hands. If he dared to betray her, go against her, then his ending would be abnormally tragic. Princess Min Xiang came and left with her entourage in a grandiose manner. She didn't hide the whole process and didn't keep a low profile. She openly dragged the family of four behind the carriage. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell what was going on. Princess Min Xiang's residence was half a city away from the place where the fifth prince consort kept his mistress. Therefore, along the way, who knew how many people knew about this matter? When they returned to the princess residence, Princess Min Xiang did not say much. She only threw the fifth prince consort's mistress to a group of guards and said, "This is your reward." Then, she ordered the fifth prince consort and the two children to watch the scene. Even if the guards had a bit of conscience, they were all fed to the dogs because they knew that if they had a conscience, Princess Min Xiang would be chopped up by them. As for those without a conscience, they were naturally even more unscrupulous. Compared to the prince consort, they were only small figures. Now, they could taste the prince consort's woman and trample on his dignity. The pleasure of being above a big figure was not something that could be felt all the time. Princess Min Xiang did not watch the scene but listened to it. The woman's pitiful cries and pleas for mercy, the two children's cries for help, and the guards' unscrupulous laughter and insults were all on the other side of the flower bush. Princess Min Xiang was leisurely drinking tea and listening with an indifferent expression. However, gradually, her eyes narrowed because she didn't hear her husband's voice from start to finish. It sounded like a feast, but don't forget that it was winter now. No matter how hot-blooded they were outside, they would not be able to get high. Therefore, if it was a kind of torture for the victim, it was not much better for the abuser. It was already good enough that they did not become impotent. In fact, although the woman who was violated was crying and begging for mercy, she did not look at the fifth prince consort and did not ask him for help, because she knew it was useless. The fifth prince consort's eyes were bloodshot. The tip of his tongue was bitten and his fingernails dug into his palms. However, he watched from start to finish. Even when the two children tugged at his clothes and cried for him to save their mother, he was indifferent and did not even turn his head. He kept watching like this as if he wanted to remember everything and turn it into bone-deep hatred. When he did not speak, Princess Min Xiang expressed her displeasure. Her eyes moved slightly and she had someone bring the prince consort and the 2 children over. Haven't father-in-law and mother-in-law been outside asking for an audience? Now, bring them in and help the prince consort get together with this princess. There are some things that they should naturally be involved in. When the 5th prince consort's parents found out that Princess Min Xiang already knew everything and personally went to capture them, they almost fainted. In the end, their worry overcame their fear. The way they came in was not the same as Princess Min Xiang's. Some things were not only heard but also seen. At that moment, they really did not know if they should be ashamed, angry, or hateful. But his impression of Princess Min Xiang dropped from negative to infinitely negative, and the coldness in his heart was so cold that it made him shiver. They knelt down to greet Princess Min Xiang. Princess Min Xiang only looked down at them and had no intention of telling them to get up. She looked at the 2 crying children. So cute. No wonder the prince consort, father-in-law, and mother-in-law all like you. Unfortunately, this princess does not like you. Come, cut off your tongues and cut off your tendons. Princess. The 5th prince consort's parents were terrified. The 5th prince consort also raised his head. Princess Min Xiang saw this and laughed wantonly. If you speak, then you will end up like them. Think carefully. Clearly, the 3 of them did not speak anymore. However, the hatred in their eyes could not be concealed. Princess Min Xiang laughed mockingly. As expected, you care more about yourself. Do it. The 2 children did not even have time to react before a few demons pounced on them. In an extremely short period of time, they completed Princess Min Xiang's task. Clearly, it was not their first time doing this. The scene was very tragic. In reality, Princess Min Xiang had always been afraid of red liquid, especially blood. However, she endured it now. She smiled and her eyes were cold. If he did not explode in silence, he would die in silence. The 5th prince consort chose the former at this moment. https://www.beacon.com/11/11807/8793252. HTML. Please click here to report. Registration is not required. We will handle it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.beacon.com. Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website. Beacon.com. Chapter 422. Vicious Woman, Go and Die. The 5th prince consort suddenly charged at Princess Min Xiang without any reason. Accompanied by the heart-wrenching screams of his parents, they were pressed down so tightly that they could not move. Accompanied by the wantonly cries of pain from the 2 children, they could only roll on the ground helplessly. Accompanied by the increasingly weak cries for help of the woman beside him, who had followed him for many years and whom he liked, when she learned of her son's situation, she almost went mad. 5th prince consort's eyes were completely red, filled with savagery. Like a malicious spirit, he tightly gripped Princess Min Xiang's neck. This change came too suddenly and caught them off guard. The people serving Princess Min Xiang couldn't react at all. When they regained their senses, they immediately went up to tear him apart, scratching and cursing him arrogantly. But the 5th prince consort didn't move at all. His strength was unprecedentedly strong and seemed like he wanted Princess Min Xiang to die. Princess Min Xiang grabbed his hand and wanted to pry it open. Even if she choked him until he bled, it was useless. She made gurgling sounds in her throat and her eyes were filled with disbelief. She probably didn't expect that this man would dare to resist her and even want to kill her. But the gradually suffocating feeling showed that everything was so real. Looking at him at such a close distance, a great fear suddenly appeared in her heart and she started to struggle with all her might. The 5th prince consort gritted his teeth. You vicious woman, go and die, go and die. At that moment, some unknown thought appeared in his mind. He suddenly leaned forward and bit down on Princess Min Xiong's ear. Even though her neck was being strangled, Princess Min Xiong screamed in pain. The people beside Princess Min Xiong were so frightened that their guts were shattered. Their sharp nails scratched at his eyes, ears, and other places, and then pulled his hair. In a short moment, the fifth prince consort's face was already unrecognizable. There were streaks of blood. His right eye was very injured. Not only was it bleeding, his eyeball was about to fall out. They hoped that he would let go because of the pain. However, not only did the fifth prince consort not let go, he even exploded with unprecedented potential due to the pain. He only said 2 words, "Go and die, go and die. Are you all dead? Hurry up and release this disrespectful bastard." The servant beside Princess Min Xiong roared angrily at the stunned guards. Such an exciting scene really scared many people, including the parents of the fifth prince consort. They were all stunned on the spot. The guards seemed to come back to their senses and hurriedly went forward, smashing their swords at his back and head. They did not hold back at all. To put it bluntly, the fifth prince consort was already a dead man. In order to save the princess, it was not too much to kill him now. But after a few hits, the fifth prince consort tore off Princess Min Xiong's ear. This time, almost everyone was scared out of their wits. But Princess Min Xiong was already out of breath. However, there were still some who had not completely lost their souls. The guard leader drew his blade and cut off the fifth prince consort's arm. The fifth prince consort staggered 2 steps back and fell to the ground. He looked very bad, but he did not seem to feel any pain. He laughed wildly, but his laughter was mournful and strange, making people's hair stand on end. However, these people from the princess residence did not care about him. They hurriedly checked on Princess Min Xiong's condition. Fortunately, she was still alive. But when they saw that Princess Min Xiong was missing an ear, her neck, cheeks, and clothes were all covered in blood, they were probably done for. It was not bad to be able to keep their lives. Residence doctor, where is the residence doctor? Before the residence doctor arrived, another group of people hurriedly arrived. The number of people was quite impressive. But when they saw the scene in front of them, they all felt their hearts turn cold. It was over. Other than an ant, there was also the head steward of the Jade Essence Palace. Noble consort Su asked them to come together because she was worried that Princess Min Xiong would be stubborn. The 2 of them brought some people and were more than enough to restrain Princess Min Xiong under her orders. However, the scene now was telling them the truth. Even though they rushed over, they were still too late. What should and should not have happened had already happened, and it was very bad. The 2 leaders of the Jade Essence Palace were not stupid. Looking at the current situation, they could roughly guess how things had developed. The prince consort had hurt the princess and it was absolutely unforgivable. However, what Princess Min Xiong had done was too vicious. Even if the prince consort was punished in the end, her reputation would be completely ruined. And without a doubt, noble consort Su would also be implicated because Princess Min Xiong was her daughter. It was the mother's fault for not teaching the daughter well. Her daughter was so vicious and harmed innocent children. Naturally, she would suspect noble consort Su's character. Recently, noble consort Su had lost her holy heart. What Princess Min Xiong had done was not as simple as adding fuel to the fire. Originally, Princess Min Xiong had the absolute advantage in this matter. As long as she endured a bit, she didn't need to do anything. She only needed to cry at the appropriate time and the emperor would make a decision for her and punish the prince consort severely. In the future, however the princess wanted to control the prince consort, it would all depend on her mood. And as the father, the emperor would also comfort her. A good card had been ruined by Princess Min Xiong like this. The 2 leaders of the Jade Essence Palace looked at each other and then looked at the large group of the 5th Prince Consort's clansmen behind them. It was impossible to cover up this matter, but they still had to prevent the situation from escalating. It wasn't the time to blame anyone, and it wasn't the time to investigate. Hurrying to save people was the most important thing. At this time, other than the 2 uncontrollable children, everyone maintained their silence. Those who were still rational all stood in their own positions and calculated how to remove themselves or their clansmen from this matter or reduce the responsibility. Princess Min Xiang and the people behind her wanted to protect their reputation, while the fifth prince consort and the people behind him wanted to protect their lives and clansmen. This side had already sent people into the palace to inform Imperial Consort Su of the severity of the matter. The fifth prince consort's clan wasn't to be trifled with either. Originally, they should have shared interests with Imperial Consort Rue. However, not everyone was willing to rely on Imperial Consort Rue. Now that they wanted to protect themselves, they had to find someone else. In reality, with such a big handle on Imperial Consort Su, it wasn't difficult to find someone to help them. When Jingwan received the details of the situation, she was teasing the two little white tigers that she had gotten from Wan Shou. The two little fellows had been raised to be very energetic and had been specially trained. Not only were they not afraid of people, according to Jingwan, they would even take the initiative to act spoiled and cute with people. They were extremely adorable. Jingwan's mood was originally very good, but after hearing the details of the matter, her mood fell to the bottom of the valley. She took back the hand that was stroking the tiger's ear. "Take them away. Take care of them carefully. Don't get sick." Jingwan bent down and quietly washed her hands. She held a cup of hot tea and looked at an unknown place in a daze. The people around her all knew that their Wang Fei was currently unhappy, but they didn't know what to do and didn't know how to console her. Li Hongyuan lifted the curtain and came in. Clearly, he had already received the news from the study. Li Hongyuan walked to Jingwan's side and sat down. "What is it? Are you angry with your husband?" Jingwan looked at him in surprise. "Why does a Yuan say this? After all, if your husband didn't let people leak the matter, it probably wouldn't be so bad, right?" Although he said this, Li Hongyuan didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it at all. Even if Jingwan wasn't clear about Li Hongyuan's nature, she was still 70 to 80% sure. It would be strange if he cared. He was so duplicitous and it was for her. However, in Jingwan's view, his insincere performance was simply mocking her soft-heartedness. Ah Yuan said this. In a life-and-death situation, one would be a fool if he didn't take advantage of the situation. Moreover, what the fifth prince consort did might not be hidden forever. In reality, with his relationship with Princess Min Xiang, it was inevitable that it would be exposed. However, Princess Min Xiang's methods were too vicious and unexpected. She clearly had the upper hand. I originally thought that even if her temper wasn't good, she wouldn't go too far. Who knew? Jingwan wasn't a saint. She wouldn't take all the blame just because something happened that was difficult to accept. In reality, Li Hongyuan had expected Princess Min Xiang to do such a thing. However, so what? If she didn't do this, she wouldn't be able to achieve the desired effect. Since things have already come to this, there's nothing we can do to salvage the situation. We can only secretly add fuel to the fire and blow things up a little. Moreover, hasn't Min Xiang already received her retribution? A princess had lost an ear and was almost strangled to death. Her vocal cords might also be damaged. This kind of thing could be said to be a fatal blow to a noble who cared a lot about her appearance. If she had the reputation of harming innocent children, she could only live an ignoble life for the rest of her life. Speaking of this, Jingwan sighed in her heart. This honest man was bullied too much. When he exploded, it was quite scary. Therefore, it was best to leave some leeway when doing things on a daily basis. In any case, he was the person who shared the same pillow, not a mortal enemy. Why bother? Jingwan wasn't in the mood to listen to any more gossip about this kind of mood-destroying matter. I'd better go find the hidden gold envoy. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/8839472. HTML. Please click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken.com. Bicken.com mobile version reading website. Bicken. Come. Chapter 423. Jingwan was not in the mood to listen to any more gossip that would spoil her mood. I'd better go find the envoy from the hidden gold treasury. Li Hongyuan smiled and nodded. Since she had made up her mind, Jingwan turned around and asked someone to send the prepared invitation to the courier station. Because the hidden gold treasury was mainly made up of women, it was reasonable for them to come in contact with the officials from the Qi Yuan since they represented the country. However, the officials from the Qi Yuan were a group of men, and some of their ideas were deeply ingrained. In their eyes, women who meddled in political affairs were like hens. They also wanted to avoid arousing suspicion, so naturally, they would not easily come in contact with the hidden gold treasury. The hidden gold treasury was located to the west of the Qi Yuan, northwest of the southern Qi Yuan. The other neighboring countries were insignificant small countries. The hidden gold treasury's geographical location was special. Compared to the southern Qi Yuan, there was a natural moat between the two countries. Compared to the Qi Yuan, the two countries were more harmonious. Therefore, the envoys from the other countries, even if they were from the small countries, were more busy. Only the hidden gold treasury was free. However, they were also very open-minded. Before they left, they wantonly bought things in the capital of the Qi Yuan. The hidden gold treasury was not as rich as the Qi Yuan. Most of the silk and porcelain products were also from the Qi Yuan. Moreover, they were expensive and did not look particularly good. Now that they had the opportunity, they did not hesitate to buy things that were taboo. In comparison, the prices were simply too low. Under such circumstances, the hidden gold treasury's envoy was naturally very surprised when he received Jingwan's invitation. However, the invitation clearly stated that she was only interested in the cultural history of the hidden gold treasury. Therefore, she wanted to meet with the hidden gold treasury's envoy. Although they were women, the Qi Yuan's old foxes and sly old foxes were essentially the same. When they were sent to the Qi Yuan, they naturally had a detailed understanding of the Qi Yuan. In fact, among them, there were people who specialized in the study of the Qi Yuan. Naturally, they knew what kind of situation the women in the Qi Yuan were. Under such circumstances, it was unexpected that they would receive an invitation from the princess consort who was directly interested in the hidden gold treasury. Qi Yuan's men were respected, and it was even more so for the nobles. As the wife of such a person, wasn't it obvious that she was slapping her husband's face by being interested in the hidden gold treasury, which was obviously a woman's status? To put it bluntly, she was simply not following the virtues of a woman. Was it really okay for her to do this? However, since the invitation was sent, and the other party was of noble status and looked like a woman, there was nothing to hide. Naturally, there was no reason for them to reject. In fact, they were also very curious about this princess consort. If she was a woman from their own country, it would be strange if they didn't have such thoughts. However, the women in the Qi Yuan had always been taught to treat their husbands as gods. People like them were really not allowed to show their faces in public. They were definitely the negative examples of the women in the Qi Yuan. Now that there was such an abnormal princess consort, how could they not be curious? Therefore, the invitation was replied very quickly. However, the invitation was changed to another place. After all, the courier station was full of people and there were envoys from more than 10 countries. It was indeed not a suitable place for a princess consort like her to go. Almost immediately, she received a reply. Jingwan's bad mood finally turned for the better. She was in a good mood and asked her husband about it. Then, she prepared a small gift for tomorrow's appointment. Whenever Jingwan gave someone a little gift, Li Hongyuan would definitely be jealous. However, he didn't flare up this time. He told her everything that Jingwan wanted to know. Unfortunately, the appointment was scheduled for the next day. Now that she was free, she seemed to have nothing to do. As for Princess Min Xiang's matter, she didn't want to pay attention to it. However, it seemed to be a little uncomfortable. Forget it. Princess Min Xiang had done such a disgusting thing. She should know even more about her end. When Imperial Consort Su learned about the tragic situation in Princess Min Xiang's residence, she almost fainted. In fact, she wasn't much better than not fainting. She was panting rapidly and her chest was heaving up and down. She didn't calm down for a long time. After she calmed down, she, who had always been good at self-cultivation, smashed her own palace for the first time. She no longer cared about her image and cursed the evil creature. This vile spawn was not the same as the one who scolded Li Hongyuan in the past. This was a real, genuine vile spawn. Imperial Consort Su was very clear about the consequences of this matter. It was because she knew that Imperial Consort Su couldn't wait to strangle her own daughter to death. That evil creature, that evil creature. If I knew this would happen, I should have drowned her when she was born. Why didn't she just be strangled to death? It would have been more straightforward if she died. Imperial Consort Su was extremely angry. The servants by her side didn't dare to step forward to mediate. After venting, Imperial Consort Su finally found her reason. It was useless to say anything now. She could only think of a way to smooth things over as much as possible. Imperial Consort Su coughed violently. It looked like her lungs were about to be coughed out. A palace maid hurriedly poured water for her and gave her a pill. Imperial Consort Su's body had been unwell recently. The reason why she didn't collapse from anger was definitely because her endurance was very strong. After Imperial Consort Su recovered, she said, "Inform Prince Rue to immediately rush to the 5th princess's residence and understand what happened." Imperial Consort, don't worry. His Highness must have already known about such a big matter. He might already be in the princess's residence right now. The palace maid beside her comforted her. Imperial Consort Su naturally believed these words. Other than occasionally giving her advice, she had always believed in her son's ability. Noble Consort Su would never believe that there was no problem in this matter. After all, the distance between Princess Min Xiang's residence and Princess Wu Gu's mistress was much greater than the distance between the residence and the imperial palace. When Princess Min Xiang brought people to capture Wu Gu, someone had already rushed to the imperial palace to report. Even if it wasn't so convenient to enter the palace, it was delayed for some time. She immediately sent people out of the palace. Every time they rushed to the residence, the matter was already irreversible. Clearly, something went wrong. When it was too much of a coincidence, it definitely wasn't a coincidence. It must be the person who told Min Xiang about this matter. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/8954608. HTML. Click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken.com mobile edition website: bicken.com. Chapter 424. Just like what Noble Consort Su's palace maid had said, the matter had blown up. Princess Min Xiang was Prince Rue's younger sister. How could he not have received the news? His people would definitely tell him immediately, and then he would definitely ask about it. However, Li Hongming's understanding of Princess Min Xiang was lacking. Coincidentally, he still had matters to attend to. In his opinion, it was just a capture and he could handle it however he wanted. It wasn't a big deal. Naturally, he didn't rush over immediately. When he received the news again, he immediately threw away what he was doing and rushed over. He was filled with regret. Therefore, Li Hongyuan understood their psychological state very well. He was very clear about what methods to use and what needed to be done. Prince Rue also wanted to strangle Princess Min Xiang. Looking at Princess Min Xiang, who was still unconscious and had a white cloth wrapped around her head, this wasn't the first time he had this thought. She had done such a vicious thing and damaged the imperial family's reputation. Now, she was even a one-eared princess. She was simply a disgrace to the imperial family. In reality, what Princess Min Xiang had done was nothing in their eyes. Whether it was noble consort Su or Prince Rui, the prerequisite was that they couldn't let the world know about it. For people like them, how many of their hands were not stained with blood and human lives? It didn't matter if it was done in private. If she died, then so be it. However, it couldn't be done in public. Even if she was just a servant who could be beaten and killed by her master, she would be accused of being vicious if it was spread to the outside world. What's more, she was of good birth and had 2 children. In this way, it wouldn't be too much even if she was condemned by 1,000 people. His mortal enemies would seize this point and attack him to death. They would say that it was his sister's doing, but they would want to pin it all on him. All of this would be erased if this good younger sister died. If she died in the hands of her son-in-law, there would be nothing to say. This was the price she had to pay for doing such a stupid thing. Li Hongming looked at Princess Min Xiang with a murderous gaze for a long time. The maidservants and nannies kneeling by the side trembled. In the end, Li Hongming didn't strangle Princess Min Xiang to death. Many people knew that he had entered the princess residence. Once he entered, Min Xiang died. Even if nothing happened, people would think that there was something wrong. Moreover, many people from that brother-in-law's family were still outside. Therefore, not only could he not do anything, but he also had to ensure that his sister was fine. However, it was difficult for Li Hongming to get rid of the anger in his heart. If he didn't do anything, he would be the one who would feel uncomfortable. Men, drag out all the servants of the princess and flog them 30 times. All the guards of the princess residence are to be flogged 50 times. Your Highness, please spare us, Your Highness. Everyone kowtowed and begged for mercy. If it weren't for Gu Shi's reputation, Li Hongming would have killed them. What was the use of begging for mercy now? Li Hongming's reason for dealing with these people couldn't be any more justified. When his master did something wrong, he didn't stop him. Instead, he helped the tyrant. He deserved to be beaten to death. All of them were dragged out. Soon, screams sounded in the courtyard. No one gagged their mouths. Clearly, venting was one thing, but it was more for some people to see. Princess Min Xiang fainted mainly because she was frightened. Therefore, she woke up very quickly. After waking up, that sharp pain instantly attacked her. Although her ear was torn off after she fainted, the feeling of being bitten was very clear. She subconsciously reached out to touch it. It was completely different from what she had expected. Her consciousness was instantly awakened. Even if it was wrapped in several layers, it shouldn't be flat. Princess Min Xiang's face was lifeless. She even ignored the pain. You lost an ear. Princess with only one ear. Doesn't it feel good? You will be the center of attention in the future. Are you happy? Prince Rui sat by the bed and said emotionlessly. Princess Min Xiang screamed hysterically. She wanted to tear off the white cloth on her head as if she was crazy. Sometimes, if you don't pay attention to some small injuries, it will lead to death. If you want to die, then go ahead. You can just die like this. It seemed to be a provocation, but it also seemed to be the truth. Princess Min Xiang finally calmed down a little. She raised her head to look at Li Hongming. There was a trace of disbelief in her eyes. This person who spoke so coldly didn't seem to be the brother who doted on her in the past. He couldn't even compare to a stranger. He was more like an enemy. The fear of dying hadn't completely disappeared. Facing such a brother, Princess Min Xiang only felt extremely wronged. It was bad enough that he didn't help her vent her anger, but he actually spoke to her like this. Li Hongming, am I really your sister? You actually treat me like this? I will tell Mother. Tell Mother? If Mother was in front of you now, she would probably beat you to death. You idiot who can't do anything right. What did you say? Princess Min Xiang pounced forward, wanting to scratch him. Li Hongming turned slightly and grabbed her arm, fiercely throwing her back onto the bed. It's fine that I spoiled you, but I didn't expect that I raised you to be so brainless. You are a princess, a golden branch and jade leaf. If someone did something wrong to you, they don't need to do anything. There will naturally be someone to stand up for you. It's fine that you did it yourself, but you even made a fuss about it. If you aren't an idiot, then what are you? This time, you caused Mother and this prince to be so miserable. You still hope that Mother will protect you? Without Mother and this prince, would you still be the most respected among your sisters? You have offended many people in the palace. Do you know what it feels like to lose power and have people hit you when you are down? Princess Min Xiang was stunned for a moment. She probably didn't understand how she had harmed her mother and brother. Li Hongming walked forward and grabbed her hair, forcing her to raise her head. You still don't know what you did wrong? Princess Min Xiang had already realized it in a daze. However, what did I do wrong? It was that damned cheap man who deceived me and betrayed me first. He deserves to be chopped into minced meat. Princess Min Xiang roared hysterically. https://www.bicon.com/11/11807/895469 HTML chapter error. Click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicon.com. Bicon. Com mobile version reading website. Bicon.com. Chapter 425. At this time, Princess Min Xiang finally felt some fear and terror. She also vaguely knew that she might have really done something wrong. The pain on her scalp also told her that this elder brother of hers was not as gentle and good-tempered as he usually was. That kind of coldness from inside out made her feel unfamiliar. Thus, Princess Min Xiang grabbed Li Hongming's hand in an attempt to relieve the pain, but her body couldn't help but tremble. Li Hongming let go of her and even gently patted her head, as if he was apologizing and comforting her for pulling her hair. Min Xiang, Imperial Mother protected you too well. She didn't let you know about many things and didn't let you participate. That's why you are so naive and ignorant today. I didn't think there was a problem in the past. You are a girl, after all, it doesn't matter if you are pampered. You are this prince's only sister. However, only today did I realize that I really made a huge mistake and regret it. Min Xiang, actually, living like this is an embarrassment. If you die, you can still make use of your remaining value. Princess Min Xiang might have thought of committing suicide when she discovered that her body was incomplete, but now that Li Hongming said this, she didn't want to die at all. So what if her body was incomplete? She was still a princess. She could still live a luxurious life. Even if others looked at her strangely, no one dared to say a word in front of her. Especially after experiencing the fear of death at the hands of the prince consort, she cherished her life very much. She didn't want to die, she definitely didn't want to die. However, the feeling that Li Hongming gave her just now was too terrifying. Princess Min Xiang also knew that if she went against him, she definitely wouldn't have a good ending. Especially now that there was no one else in the room other than the two of them. This elder brother of hers was constantly talking about death. She didn't know what would happen if she angered him. Imperial brother, I know I was wrong. I was just too angry and didn't consider the consequences. I didn't want to cause trouble for Imperial Mother and you. Believe me. Prince Rui naturally believed this. After all of Min Xiang's confidence came from them. She was just too angry to consider the consequences? It was because she had never thought about this problem. Speaking of which, it was their fault for giving Min Xiang the illusion that they had the absolute advantage. That was why she had been so unscrupulous. Moreover, even if he had told her about the serious consequences, she probably still hadn't realized the seriousness of the matter. Imperial brother, I don't want to die. I really don't want to die. You and Imperial Mother must have a way to solve this problem, right? As long as this matter is resolved, I promise to be obedient. I will listen to you and Imperial Mother. Imperial Brother. Imperial Mother only has the two of us. If I die, Imperial Mother will definitely be sad. You won't have the heart to do that, right? Li Hongming listened coldly as Min Xiang acted like a clown in front of him. That's right. Even now, Princess Min Xiang still hadn't truly repented. She acted submissively just to save her own life. If she had really sorted out this matter, she wouldn't be like this. Seeing that Princess Min Xiang was getting stiffer and stiffer, to the point where she almost couldn't hold it in anymore, Li Hongming slowly said, Min Xiang, you better remember what you said now. If you do it again in the future, I will make sure you die a horrible death. Princess Min Xiang's body trembled. She could feel that Li Hongming wasn't joking with her at all. Li Hongming was thinking about something else. If Min Xiang died, this matter would be completely resolved. However, there were pros and cons to this matter. After all, the impact of what Min Xiang had done was already present. Even if this matter was resolved, the consequences wouldn't disappear. If accumulated, it could become a dangerous factor in the future. Li Hongming's men knocked lightly on the door. Your Highness, someone from the palace is here. His Majesty summons the princess and the prince consort to enter the palace. Understood. Li Hongming already had an idea. As for his Mu Fei, he wasn't worried. Even if he didn't explain the matter to her, she wouldn't make any mistakes. Change your clothes and prepare to enter the palace. Princess Min Xiang was afraid to see Lu Chengdi at this time. She subconsciously pulled on Li Hongming's sleeve. Imperial Brother, what should we do? What should we do? What should we do? Naturally, do what should be done. You don't have to do anything. You just have to remain silent. Mu Fei and I will take care of the rest. Remember, if you still want to live a life of luxury in the future, then no matter what happens, you better keep your mouth shut. If you can't help but say something that shouldn't be said, Mu Fei and I won't care about you. Remember? Li Hongming's face was indescribably cold. Princess Min Xiang nodded vigorously. None of Princess Min Xiang's servants escaped punishment. However, as long as they didn't completely collapse, they had to crawl up to serve their master and enter the palace with their master. Princess Min Xiang needed to be tidied up, but it couldn't be too much. It had to be just right. After all, they needed to play the emotional card at this time. It didn't take long or short. When they saw Lu Chengdi, the eunuchs were still doing their own things. Lu Chengdi was still dealing with the mountain of memorials. Under the imperial table, noble consort Su knelt with a straight back but looked very weak. She clearly didn't cry or speak, but it made people feel extreme sadness. The fifth prince consort was carried in. He had lost a lot of blood but was still able to stay awake. It was a surprise. Seeing the black mass of people kneeling, either injured or crippled, Lu Chengdi's face couldn't help but darken. Then he smashed a pile of things on the imperial table. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/8954610. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com Bicken. Com Mobile Edition website. Bicken.com. Chapter 426. The Emperor was furious, but everyone kept quiet out of fear. Speak. What's going on? Think carefully before you speak. I won't give you a second chance, Lu Chengdi said expressionlessly. Because of this sentence, Li Hongming couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. As a father and husband, he wouldn't demote them, imprison them, or banish them to the cold palace because of this matter. However, if they didn't handle it well, they would lose the Emperor's favor and the Emperor's heart. He never thought that his imperial father chose the heir based on reason and not emotion. He favored Li Hongyuan, but he would never give the throne to him. However, Li Hongyuan was a special case. It was different for the other sons. The situation was very complicated, but it was absolutely impossible for them to completely lose the emperor's heart. At this time, imperial concubine Su was also very nervous. She was actually more worried than her son. It was far easier and more common for the emperor to abolish a concubine than to kill a son. Even a simple breach of etiquette in front of the emperor could demote a concubine and banish her to the cold palace. If there was no estrangement between her and Yuan imperial concubine Su wouldn't even be worried at all. Thinking about it carefully, similar things seemed to have happened in the past. However, it seemed to be insignificant. Moreover, it disappeared because of Yuan Because it didn't cause any waves, imperial concubine Su didn't have a deep memory of it. Now, those memories suddenly became clear. At this moment, imperial concubine Su wished that her relationship with her adopted son was still the same as before. Then, he might have already entered the palace by now. Therefore, at this time, imperial concubine Su actually thought of Li Hongyuan. How laughable and lamentable. Then, it was hard to say whether imperial concubine Su's true feelings for Li Hongyuan were because he was useful or because she received a return for her efforts. Or perhaps the two were intertwined. However, she met Li Hongyuan, who was reborn. Now that imperial concubine Su had no value, she could only suffer a tragedy. Of course, for someone like imperial concubine Su, no matter how much her heart churned, it couldn't be seen on her face. Outside, regardless of whether she was happy or angry, she would only show people what she wanted them to see. As she grew older, this skill became more and more profound. The problem now was that they had not colluded. The people below might not understand their intentions. If they spouted nonsense, the consequences would be quite serious. Are you mute? Lu Qingdi slapped the table heavily. Min Xiang, speak. Princess Min Xiang subconsciously trembled. She raised her head and secretly glanced at Lu Qingdi. Even though Princess Min Xiang wasn't a person who was good at reading people's expressions, she could clearly feel Lu Qingdi's coldness at this moment. Especially those cold eyes. It was completely different from what she remembered. Facing noble consort Su's and even Li Hongming's anger, Princess Min Xiang subconsciously didn't care. But Lu Qingdi was different. As long as he wasn't a puppet emperor, as imperial children and concubines, he knew very well what would happen if he lost the favor of the emperor. How many sisters and brothers had been bullied by her without the emperor's favor? There was nothing more frightening to Princess Min Xiang than this. Imperial father. With a bit of grievance and a bit of coquettishness, she put on the most delicate and naive expression. This was the appearance that Lu Qingdi liked the most. Min Xiang, have you forgotten that you are already a married woman? How can you be like this? Princess Min Xiang's expression instantly stiffened. She looked quite amused. After a while, she probably thought of Li Hongming's words and didn't speak anymore. She just sobbed weakly. She looked weak and innocent. Also, with the white cloth wrapped around her head, she looked quite pitiful. Lu Qingdi was indifferent. It was obvious that there were so many people in his harem. In order to win his love, they had used all kinds of methods. When he was happy, or if he was willing to love someone, no matter if it was his concubines or children, he could accept it. They didn't even need to do too much. But when he didn't want to accept it, it was useless no matter how much they did. Princess Min Xiang cried and didn't speak. Lu Qingdi also didn't continue speaking, but his expression didn't soften at all. What about the prince consort? Don't you want to say anything? Just like how he ignored Princess Min Xiang's ears and the marks on her neck, Lu Qingdi also ignored the fifth prince consort's broken arm, his deformed face, and his eye that was so swollen that it could not be opened. Actually, Lu Qingdi was a bit surprised by the fifth prince consort's pitiful appearance. But the anger in his heart suppressed everything. Originally, it hadn't been 2 days since the birthday. What happened on that day hadn't been investigated yet. The envoys from various countries were still in the capital. After all, after the birthday, they should be discussing the benefits between countries. For example, some cooperation, some trade, and many other things. When they couldn't do two things at the same time, someone actually caused trouble and made it known to everyone. They made a fool of themselves in front of the public. He used to think that his fifth daughter wasn't bad. Now, he knew that she was an impulsive idiot. Although he couldn't say that he knew what kind of person his consort was, it was really disappointing for her to raise such a daughter. In the current situation, the fifth prince consort indeed had the most right to speak. But he only felt that his entire body was cold. Even his bones were cold. His vision darkened and his broken arm seemed to be in so much pain that he couldn't feel it. His consciousness was also a bit blurry. Since Lu Qingdi allowed him to speak, he naturally spoke without any rules. He spoke intermittently, one sentence after another. However, since Lu Qingdi did not speak, everyone could only listen quietly. Even if there were no rules, everyone could still learn a lot of information. The fifth prince consort recounted his humiliation, his dignity being trampled on, and his anger. Ever since he married the princess, he wasn't like a human anymore. He was worse than a beast. As he spoke, he started to cry. He cried until snot and tears flowed down his face. He didn't have any image to speak of. The fifth prince consort was a young master of a large family. Although he was a bit cowardly, his upbringing and etiquette wouldn't be wrong. Looking at him now, it could be said that this man was really about to collapse. In the process of the fifth prince consort's narration, the one with the greatest emotional fluctuations was Princess Min Xiang. After all, she wasn't the kind of person who could control her emotions. Because of her rage, her face was distorted. The things that the fifth prince consort said most likely seriously challenged her authority. She almost exploded on the spot. It was only when Consort Su shouted at her that Princess Min Xiang calmed down. However, she no longer cried weakly. She kept her head down and her emotions couldn't be seen clearly. The fifth prince consort fainted in the end. His parents couldn't care much and hurriedly supported him. They cried their hearts out. However, they were still in front of the emperor and restrained themselves. They didn't let their emotions out. Lu Qingdi rubbed his throbbing temples and had someone call for the imperial physician. What is this about the prince consort having a mistress? In the end, this was the root of everything. Before Min Xiang got married, the imperial family didn't know. To put it seriously, this was deceiving the emperor. This was definitely a serious crime. However, everything still depended on how Lu Qingdi viewed this matter. Your Majesty, the prince consort has always been a coward. He has followed the rules since he was young and rarely did anything out of line. We didn't know that he had a mistress and had a child. He also didn't have the guts to say this. After marrying the princess, he originally planned to send everyone out of the capital and never see them again. However, the things that the princess did were truly. The prince consort's heart was filled with pain. Especially when the princess aborted the child without saying anything. The princess wasn't willing to give birth to a child for the prince consort and didn't allow the prince consort to have a child. However, we couldn't just watch the prince consort die. Your Majesty, our branch only had this one child. Would the princess be willing to adopt a child from the same clan? We had no choice but to let the mother and child stay for 3 days. The fifth prince consort's mother sobbed softly as she explained the matter. At this time, they didn't dare to lie or add fuel to the fire. Lu Qingdi's gaze fell heavily on Princess Min Xiang. What happened today? It seemed that he didn't intend to seek confirmation from Min Xiang at all. Imperial Father, it's not like this. Could it be that you don't even trust your own daughter and trust an outsider? Princess Min Xiang was also anxious. Shut up. I don't want to hear you speak now. Where are Min Xiang's wet nurse and guards? Tell me one by one. If you hide anything from me. Naturally, no one dared to speak nonsense. The process of the matter was very clear. Good. You are truly my good daughter. I always thought that even if you were a little willful, your heart wasn't bad. I didn't expect you to be so vicious. https://www.beacon.com/11/11807/8954611. HTML. Please click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.beacon.com. Beacon.com mobile version reading website. Beacon.com. Chapter 427. Imperial Father, it really isn't like that. Believe me. Lu Chengdi's face was cold. He looked at Princess Min Xiang as if he was looking at a dead person. Clearly, he didn't believe Princess Min Xiang's explanation at all. Your Majesty, Imperial concubine Su struggled fiercely in her heart and couldn't hold it in anymore. What happened to Min Xiang today is all this concubine's fault. This concubine didn't teach her well. As she spoke, she sobbed. It was the kind of grief that was forced to endure. She was disappointed in Princess Min Xiang and blamed herself. Your Majesty, it's all this concubine's fault. Min Xiang has already been taught a lesson. If your Majesty wants to punish, then punish this concubine. It's the mother's fault for not teaching her daughter well. It's the mother's fault. It's the mother's fault. Imperial Father, this son is also responsible for this matter. I usually don't care much about Min Xiang and didn't know many things. That's why she kept making mistakes. If this son took some time to ask, even if I only found some clues, things wouldn't have reached this stage today. Li Hongming also had a pained expression. To put it bluntly, the mother and son were retreating in order to advance. In this kind of situation, not only could they not place righteousness before family, they also had to absolve Min Xiang. It wasn't just related to family. There was another factor. Min Xiang was a princess, the emperor's daughter. Don't say things like, a prince who commits a crime is punished the same as a commoner. That was only said for ordinary people. Otherwise, how could she be called a noble? Furthermore, she was injured by the prince consort. This kind of method wasn't wrong, but there was a prerequisite. It depended on whether Lu Chengdi would buy it. Princess Min Xiang's matter was a scandal of the imperial family. If all the princesses were like her, then the princesses after her wouldn't be able to find a slightly better husband. After all, no one was willing to follow in the footsteps of the fifth prince consort. Normal women were jealous and vicious. How could they be compared to Princess Min Xiang? Alright, the situation in the inner residence and the women in the inner residence, you could never underestimate them. Some people's methods were definitely worse than Princess Min Xiang's. Princess Min Xiang's biggest mistake was to make a big fuss and bring it to the surface. It didn't matter if others didn't know, but if others knew, it was a scandal and she lost the face of the imperial family. However, if Princess Min Xiang was dealt with like this, where would the dignity of the royal family be? We haven't said anything yet, but all of you are in a hurry to ask for forgiveness. Lu Chengdi was different from what they had expected. However, imperial concubine Su and her son did not dare to continue. In fact, this kind of dilemma made them feel uneasy for no reason. In short, one thing was certain, and that was that this was definitely not a good sign. The scene fell into a strange silence, which made people panic. Except for Lu Chengdi, who was in control of life and death, even the eunuchs felt a little suffocated. Until one of Lu Chengdi's trusted eunuchs came in. Your Majesty, we've interrogated the other people in 5th Princess Mansion. It turned out that the other people from Princess Min Xiang's residence were also brought into the palace. According to the results of the interrogation, the eunuch paused, the prince consort is a pushover in the princess's residence. The last 4 words were very soft, but everyone heard it very clearly in this quiet place, which showed that the people around Princess Min Xiang were still holding back. A pushover? Lu Chengdi tapped the imperial table with his fingertips. The prince consort of Qi Yuan has fallen to this point? As for those princes, no matter if they were from the sisters or the daughters, Lu Chengdi was absolutely satisfied with no more than 3 of them. In Lu Chengdi's opinion, even if Princess Xiang's future was ruined and many people were unwilling to marry Princess Xiang, there were still people like the prince consort of Great Elder Princess. However, in his eyes, each of his sons-in-law was really a failure. Now it seemed that it was not just a matter of future. His daughter was not excellent and was really inferior to Great Elder Princess. In addition, with Min Xiang, it was no wonder that no one liked her. The daughter-in-law of the royal family was a member of the royal family, and the son-in-law of the royal family was half a member of the royal family. Even a cowardly man had dignity when he was insulted by a group of lowly people. No wonder he couldn't bear it and hurt the princess. To some extent, Princess Min Xiang deserved it. Lu Chengdi also thought that Princess Min Xiang deserved it, but there were thousands of reasons why the prince consort hurt the princess, no matter how much he paid for it. Prince Rue left his post without permission, regardless of the severity, and was fined 1 year of his salary and suspended from his position in the Ministry of Personnel. Princess Min Xiang was vicious and immoral. She reflected on her mistakes behind closed doors and was ordered to be re-educated by 2 etiquette instructors. Princess Wu Gongma deceived the emperor, offended his superiors, and hurt the princess. He was sent to prison without pardon for the rest of his life. However, considering that he was seriously injured, he was allowed to be confined at home and not allowed to leave for the rest of his life. Everyone in the 5th princess's manor did not try to dissuade the princess, but instead helped the tyrant. Those with low status were sent back to the Ministry of Internal Affairs for severe punishment. Those without low status were sentenced to 3 years of hard labor. As soon as Lu Chengdi's words came out, no matter how the people below felt, they could only say, "Thank you, Your Majesty." For the 5th prince consort and his family, this punishment was actually not a punishment. They should be crying tears of joy, but they couldn't be happy too early. The 5th prince consort's current situation was not optimistic, and he might be in danger of losing his life. Princess Min Xiang's face was ashen. If noble consort Su hadn't stopped her in time, she would have openly disobeyed the imperial edict. In reality, noble consort Su and Prince Rue wanted to strangle her to death. The ones whose hearts were truly bleeding were the 2 of them. For noble consort Su, the empress wasn't here, so the palace affairs were left to her and Qin Shu Fei. Now that Qin Shu Fei had fallen, she should be the only one in charge. Although there was still consort Wei Xian, as the former princess of Wei, she was just a decorative vase. This was definitely the best opportunity to plant one of their own. Now that she had seized power, she would be in seclusion for half a year. Of course, this seclusion didn't mean that noble consort Su wasn't allowed to leave the Jade Palace, but that she wouldn't have the chance to serve him in bed for half a year. Even if Lu Chengdi went to the Jade Palace now, noble consort Su would arrange for others to serve him most of the time, but that was the Jade Palace's favor. The seclusion targeted Lu Chengdi. He wouldn't be able to step into the Jade Palace for half a year. In the imperial harem, no matter how luxurious it was or how high the status of the concubines was, if the emperor didn't step in, it was equivalent to a cold palace. Prince Rue was even more sullen. Hearing Lu Chengdi's words, he was meddling in other people's business. He had thrown aside the important matters at hand to meddle in these inner court disputes, and directly lost his job at the Ministry of Personnel. He had worked so hard to enter the Ministry of Personnel, to gain a foothold, to know more things, and to have more say, but now it was all for naught. As for the people on Princess Min Xiang's side, who would care about them? Emperor, Prince Jin requests an audience. When Lu Chengdi heard this, the expression on his face eased a little. Not to mention consort Su, even Li Hongming couldn't help but reveal a hopeful expression. Li Hongyuan came in and looked straight ahead. Greetings to Fu Huang. Why did you enter the palace at this time? Lu Chengdi asked. Aken heard that something happened to Min Xiang, so I entered the palace to take a look. You are considerate, but Zhan has already dealt with this matter. You should do what you should do, don't worry about it. Fu Huang, can Aken know how to deal with it? What does a grown man care about these things? Quickly scram. Lu Chengdi waved his hand impatiently. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/8968022 HTML chapter error. Click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com Mobile Edition. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.